All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Black Spinner Music Podcast. Today we've got a wonderful panel with us tonight. We got two people that are two new panelists who will be here for the very first time. And today's subject, we are going to be talking about top 10 plus five honorable mentions. You know how we always do that of 90s albums by 80s bands. It kind of seems like these 80s bands kind of got lost in the shuffle when they moved into the next decade, but we're going to shed light to these bands' albums. And today we got two very special guests with us today. For the first time, we have Chris Sinsak from, he is the co-host of Decibel Geek. He's also the founder of Rockin' Pod. And this is his first time with us today. How are you doing today, Chris?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on. I'm excited to hit this topic because there's some interesting stuff that got released during those years.
Yeah, so I am excited about this too. Also, for the first time, we have Mr. Joseph Staub with us here today, and he'll be sharing his albums as well. How are you doing today, Mr. Joe?
Doing great. Thanks for having me on. It's always great to talk about music and especially some really interesting topics like this.
Yeah, well, thanks for saying yes, guys. And also, we have with us Jerry Superman Soupy, who is from the BS Sessions with Mark, Jerry, and Charles Trainer. He is with us tonight. How's it going, Jerry? You doing good?
Good, man. Mark's milking it in Hawaii right now, fucker.
Yeah, he sure is. He seems to be on the internet a lot when he's there.
Yeah, no shit, man. He's
Yeah,
like
go to
on
the
every
beach.
5 minutes. It's like, dude, you're in freaking
Relax,
Hawaii,
man.
man.
I'm the one. I'm the one I told him that. I'm like, dude, you're on vacation. Dude, last thing I want to be is on my phone every 5 minutes if I'm on vacation in Hawaii, dude. You know what I mean?
Hawaii. Good, I would have left that at home. But also, we've got the great Al Horta, our resident panelist here every week from the Be Cool or Be podcast style. If you guys
Cheers.
want to see stuff,
Nice.
if you guys want to see some live shows, go to his YouTube page. It's fantastic. It's kind of like Martin Scorsese shot it himself. So,
Yeah, right.
so it's
Thanks, you're too kind.
So it's really good to have everybody here because this is going to be a great topic to talk about. So without further ado, let's get started. At number 10, Mr. Soupy, what
All
do you
right,
got?
now, like I said, I don't think I got the gist of this 100% because this album never got lost in the shuffle, but it's from an 80s band that released an album in the 90s. So I'm going to get this one out of the way because you guys probably won't agree with me on this one. But both Use Your Illusion albums definitely wasn't lost in the shuffle, but I thought you were talking about bands that started in the 80s and then released good stuff in the 90s. That's what I thought originally. So,
Well, yeah, I mean that's a really good example because they were in the 80s and they transitioned to a whole new decade and they did very well with their first two releases.
but like I said, this is a monster album. It never was lost in the shuffle. So
No,
It made my
didn't
honorable
have to be
mentions.
yeah.
yeah.
I'm not a huge fan of this. I think they should combine both of them, to be honest with you. But it was a monster album. So
Yeah.
Oh, the hype for those was immense, man. I
God,
remember
it was. I remember.
people waiting online around the block to get into a record store to buy it. That and the Black Album were like the two biggest ones that year,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah, they own that year.
Yeah.
I preferred the blue. What did y'all prefer?
I didn't really have a preference, to be honest with you. They both had their strong and weak moments, you know.
Yeah.
I still
I never
think
really had a preference. Sorry, Chris, go ahead.
no, it's okay. I think Dead Horse is a very underrated song of theirs.
I just could not stand their remake of "Knocking on Heaven's Door." Man, that version always irritated the hell out of me. That phone ringing, that phone dialing.
Yeah,
in the middle
the
of
phone
it,
rant.
just-
Yeah.
Ugh, dude. But,
Yeah.
Yeah,
okay.
that was filler.
Yeah, that's my number 10.
Chris, what are you going to start off with?
So for me, mine's gonna be an easy one to start off at number 10 because the album title is 10. It's Y&T with the 1990 album called 10.
Yeah.
And I fell into Y&T just a few years ago, thanks to our a lot of our mutual friend Sonny Hollywood Pooney, who did a whole episode on the band with us, and which caused me to dive into the catalog. I never really paid much attention to them back in the day. I just remember the logo And but yeah, that just once I dove in, I got my favorite album of theirs is Contagious. I love that one, but the 10 I think is one of those where you could tell this tide was shifting because there's plenty of strong material in there that I think could have gotten that album onto the charts, but it also is very slickly produced too, so it's probably very kind of. It does sound dated now, but don't be afraid of the dark. I still think is a banger of a track.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just starting slowly to getting into them. I got a couple of their stuff, a couple of their early stuff where the album they were still called Yesterday and Today.
Yeah, and they own the Sunset Strip in the 70s. Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
I think Dave, what's the singer's name? Dave
Manichetti.
I think he's the only one that's alive still, right, from the original?
Yeah, from the original band. Yeah.
Good freaking band. A great singer, too.
Yeah, see them live if they come to your town because they're amazing.
Well, I saw them live a few years ago.
Anything comes to Cookeville, but
or close to it. What are you going to start off with, Mr. Staub?
All right, so my number 10, kind of going a little bit off the beaten path here. I figure there's gonna be a lot of hard rock, heavy metal choices here tonight. An artist who had a lot of different bands through the years, always under his own name, but with some other bands as well. As the 90s began, first of all, I wanted to say, all my choices, I made the decision to only include albums that were released after September of 1991, when the music landscape shifted with the release of Nevermind. So all my albums are released after September of 91. And this one just made the cut being released in October of 91. And that would be Prince and the New Power Generation, Diamonds and Pearls. One of my favorite Prince albums of the 90s. I mean, it was probably his best album of the 90s. I mean, so many great songs on here. Diamonds and Pearls, Cream, Money Don't Matter Tonight. Great album. It was probably his last big gasp before all of the love symbol stuff kind of happened, and he changed his name and all the drama with Warner Brothers. But Diamonds and Pearls is a great album, and I think anyone who only knows Prince's 80s stuff, especially like 1999 and Purple Rain, definitely check this one out. It's a little bit of a different sound for him, but I think you can still hear his musicianship and songwriting really well in this album.
Dude, I mean, his guitar playing is legendary, dude. He is a fantastic guitar player.
Yeah.
Whether you like Prince or not, man, he's amazing.
Yeah. Yes. Was that his first album with the New Power Generation?
I think so. I can't remember if Graffiti Bridge was listed as the New Power Generation or not. But this would have been right after Graffiti Bridge. So if that wasn't listed as Prince and the New Power Generation, then that would have been the first album with the NPG.
Okay. Because I know that Graffiti Bridge was the soundtrack, right?
Yeah.
So I think that was just Prince was given credit for that one. Interesting choice. Nice one, too, because, we don't talk about Prince as much as we should. Al, what are you going to start off with?
I'm kind of going my same criteria. First of all, me and Andy talked about this topic like already, probably since like a year ago or something.
Yeah, we've been wanting to get this out there.
I'm in the middle of something. Get out of here. Sorry about that. So we talked about my criteria is I'm doing what Joseph did when the music landscape changed. I'm going with albums after that dividing line, after post Nevermind. So my criteria, my idea was I was going to include albums by 80s bands that were real popular in the 80s that released great albums in the 90s they were ignored. It went over, just people didn't give them a chance, that sort of thing. So that's what my list is based on here. Obviously, Jerry included GNR, The Illusions. Yeah, they were 90s albums by an 80s band, but they were huge. So
I get where you two are going at. I probably should have went that way too.
Well, some of mine are popular, but just albums after Nevermind.
Yeah. So my number 10 is going to be Warrant's Dog Eat Dog album, which is their third album. And even I kind of ignored it when it first came out. Like I liked Warrant. I wasn't a huge Warrant fan, but, I had their first album. I had Cherry Pie, and it was Cherry Pie was, I loved Uncle Tom's Cabin. Like the first time I got kind of just copied off a friend of mine on a cassette, and I was like, you know, I didn't really listen to it that much. And then Uncle Tom's Cabin came out, and I was like, wow, you know, they're a bit heavier now. They're getting a little more serious, you know. But when this album came out, I kind of didn't even get it right away. This wasn't until like years later that I got it. But when I got it, I was like, this is probably their best album, man. You know, bar none. And so I had to include it on my list. It's an album that's aged very well, and I think it's real strong. To me, in my opinion, it's their best album that they ever put out. So my number 10 will be Dog Eat Dog by Warrant.
Good choice. What I'm going to start off with is that these guys had some big albums in the mid to late 80s, and they got good traction going into the 90s. This was my favorite album by them. I got this one on cassette, so I'm going to start off with Queensryche Empire.
That's a good one.
Okay.
Just a really good album. I really like their songs on here. I know that the albums before were critically acclaimed, but I really liked the singles off of Empire more, and I really enjoyed the album's flow on this one. I know that the others were more of concept albums and stuff like that, but I'm going to stick with Empire as being my favorite Queensryche album, and that's what I'm going to start off with. Empire.
5 singles released off that one, and they all charted well too.
Yeah. I mean, they were all over MTV. They were all over rock radio, and some even crossed over. I think Silent of the City kind of crossed over to like the pop side of the radio.
Yeah, one of the most divisive songs they've come out with.
I didn't appreciate it when it was new, but as I've gotten older and then like really paid more attention to the lyrics and how it's about, you know, sleep, dream studies and stuff like that, it's a pretty interesting song. And yeah, it is them trying to do a Pink Floyd thing, obviously. But they do it well, and it's a very well written song.
And you still hear them on the radio. I mean, you still hear Silent Lucidity and Jet City Woman all the time on the radio. And like most classic rock radio stations, that's the only Queensryche you'll hear.
And if you're going to emulate anyone, there's nothing wrong with emulating Pink Floyd.
No,
ain't nothing wrong.
Not at all.
We're at number 9, Jerry.
I'm with Al, man. I never liked Mort until this came out, man. This is a good album, dude. I mean,
what's that?
Dog Eat Dog.
Oh, Warrant?
I mean,
oh, yeah, dude.
It's a freaking great album, dude. It's my favorite album as well, man. It was a pleasant surprise because I was not a Warrant fan until I heard this, man. So, I was.
And what made me pull it back out and really listen to it again was Mr. Chris Czynszak over here and Aaron with their albums Unleashed, man. They did a great albums Unleashed on that one. So, it kind of made me reevaluate the album again and just made me appreciate. So
yeah, I went and saw
thanks,
these
Chris.
guys. I went and saw these guys last year. They have this new place called, I forget the name of it actually, in Cookeville. They do concerts. They came down with Lita Ford and the Bullet Boys. They didn't do anything off this album. I'm not a huge fan of their new singer. I can't remember his name either right now. I'm
Robert
down.
Mason.
Yeah, but they were still good live, man. I mean, he doesn't sound like Janie, but they still put on a good show. So, But this album here was a big surprise for me, man. I love it.
It makes you kind of appreciate Janie Lane because he was like the songwriter in that band, man.
Yep.
You know, he wrote all the songs.
I think he wrote everything off this one at least.
He did, yeah.
So
they usually do play
record,
at
man.
least
Good
a song or two off that live. I've seen them play Machine Gun and I've seen them play Junkyard Dog, I think.
Well, I need to revisit that album because I haven't heard it in a long, long time.
Yeah.
Oh, it's great.
So that's something to check out.
Yeah.
It'll come up later on my list.
Oh wow. Chris, what do you got coming up?
This might be a little bit of a cheat. So this album was intended to get released in 1995, but then it got put on the shelf for 6 more years, I think, 5-6 more years. But I'm talking about Poison's Crack a Smile. It wound up being called Crack a Smile and More because they threw some extra stuff on there. But this was the one album they did with Blue Saraceno as the guitar player. I don't know if if you guys remember him, but always had plaid guitars. And but no, I just think it's a really solid record. And like, I know Native Tongue is kind of the other non-CC record that gets more attention with Richie Kotzen. And I like Richie as a player, but that was a square peg in a round hole situation to me. I thought Blue Saraceno fit right in well with Poison, and the songs on this record, "Shut Up, Make Love," "Sexual Thing," "No Ring, No Gets." I mean, it's Bret Michaels, so it's cheese, but it's good cheese, and yeah, I wish it had gotten released in '95. I don't know, not that it would have made much difference chart wise, but it was cool to see it finally come out, and I think it's a great record personally.
Interesting. I gotta check that one out because I'm not that
I
familiar.
remember like 2 or 3 of those songs got released on their greatest hits before that album came out.
Mm-hmm.
Like they threw it on like a Poison's greatest hits or something. It was like they put unreleased like 2 or 3 unreleased songs, and it was from that album. But it was before that album they released that full album. So yeah, it was good.
You can see that lineup of the band playing a stadium crowd for Rock in Rio around '95.
Yeah.
On YouTube, and they sound pretty great.
Oh wow, interesting.
Yeah, South America and Europe didn't turn their back on hard rock and metal.
Can a quick tangent? The other day I was I go on to Metal Sludge's board a lot, and Stevie posted a link to it was the last Skid Row show with Sebastian Bach singing, and it was at I believe it was at the same festival, and his voice is just blown from the get go, and the crowd is not digging them at all. And it gets to Youth Gone Wild to finish out their set, and he goes, "This is the last one. You should be happy." He was really pissed off.
Oh man,
Sebastian Bach kind of talked his way out of ever going back to Skid Row. Pretty much.
He's an idiot.
Well, he wants to go back, but the other guys don't want him.
Yeah, well, because of that mouth of his.
I can't believe I saw him in the freaking Gilmore Girls, man. That was kind of.
The man has no shame.
I can't believe you're watching the Gilmore Girls.
Look at the daughter, man. I got a lot of estrogen in my family, dude. So I don't watch every freaking episode of it. So
well, sometimes
that's okay. I use my
with a family, right, Jerry?
Yep.
That's okay. That's okay. Sometimes I use my daughter as a scapegoat as well. Right. Anyway,
I did that to watch like the Disney movies and shit in the movies. I'm like, I don't want to go see this, but I'm like, damn, yeah, it's a cool freaking movie, man.
Joseph, what are you going to go with for your number 9?
All right, so my number 9 is probably going to be a pretty divisive pick. There's definitely at least one other album, probably 2 if you count, other than My Criteria.
I can't hear him.
Huh?
What's that?
I can hear him fine.
Okay, now my internet's going in and out. I'm sorry, guys. Go ahead, Joseph.
Right.
Sorry.
Okay. So my pick's going to be kind of divisive. There's definitely at least 1, maybe 2 other albums from this band in the 90s that somebody might pick. And I don't know why, but I've always preferred this album. And that is Euthanasia from Megadeth. I definitely prefer it to Countdown. I think Countdown is a very hit and miss album. And other than A Tout Le Monde, I love almost every track on this album. As far as just really kind of a different sound, going back to their roots after kind of experimenting a little bit more on Countdown to Extinction, I think this is just a really good hard rock and heavy album. And just compared to, I mean, of course, if I wasn't using my criteria, Rust in Peace definitely would have made my list. But with the post Nevermind, I'm going to go with Euthanasia.
Oh, good choice. Yeah, I think they're going to come up later. Might be that one, might not be. I don't know yet.
Sorry about that.
My band and the band I played in, or when this album came out, we played Reckoning Day and Train of Consequences. Those were fun songs to play live.
Great songs.
Al, what are you going to go with?
Well, I'm going with the one that Chris Czynszak didn't pick, and that's Poison's Native Tongue. Yeah, I actually really liked that album a lot when it came out, and I'm a big fan of Richie Kotzen, and I know his fingerprints are really kind of it's almost kind of a Richie Kotzen with Poison as his backup band. He really brought out a musicality in a band though, and I guess that's probably why it's divisive. You know, I'm a big fan of musicianship, so I know Poison. I don't throw them on for quote unquote musicianship. I throw them on like if I want to have just rock out have some fun or whatever, and stuff. But I mean, this album is them being a little more serious, and I kind of really dug it. And sorry about that. Let me adjust my phone here. And it's got some good ones on here, man. I mean, Stand is a great song, and even when I first saw Winery Dogs, they only had one album on. He would do Stand to kind of fill out the set, which is cool, Until You Suffer Some Fire and Ice, I thought that was really a good song. There's a lot of good Theater of the Soul and Bastard of the Thousand Blues, not really, but but I thought it was a strong album, and I mean, it's the serious Poison, but I guess in '93 you couldn't be the Poison of like 1988, so
Yeah.
so that's I mean, bands matured, man. They got older, and not every band could be AC/DC and put the same album out,
Right.
pretty much. So yeah, that's my number 9 is Poison Native Tongue.
Hey, so you were talking about Richie Kotzon's guitar playing there. That was a little different, and where the band kind of revolved around his guitar playing. Do you think that might be the same thing with this Motley Crue album coming out with John 5?
It's gonna be different, I mean, obviously John 5 is a different player than Mick Mars, so
Right.
it's gonna, unless Nicky tells him,
Right.
play like Mick or something, which I don't know, but I don't think John 5 really. I think he'll have his stamp all over it, So
See, I feel like it's going to be one of those John 5's just happy to be there things, and
Yeah.
he's going to do
he's gonna,
whatever they tell him to do.
yeah, he's gonna listen. He's gonna listen to what Nicky wants him to play, dude.
It can't sound
Probably-
any worse
probably
than
like-
Sex or the Dirt. So nowhere to go but up.
Sure.
I know, really. It might be a situation where, like, when Vinnie Vincent was in Kiss and Gene and Paul restrained them, with soloing wise and stuff like that. It might be, some situation like that. Who knows?
Who are you talking about? Who?
Sorry, Chris.
I'm not familiar with that name.
That's a dirty word around here, man. Let's just say VG.
That's all. I'm just kidding.
It's okay.
Uh,
You're-
Nah, dude, you
F that
got
guy.
every right to hate that son of a bitch, man.
you
Trust
guys
me.
are laughing all the way to the bank now because he's ruining everybody else's lives now too.
Yeah, really.
I'm part of an exclusive club that's very large.
I'm not laughing at the situation. I'm just laughing with you about it. I had to sucked for you, bro.
Honestly, the way it turned out, it's the most Vinny thing possible. So it's kind of funny in hindsight.
Even more Vinny than hiring and firing a singer in the same week.
What an asshole. Anyway,
I mean,
Go ahead, Andy.
I wonder if he's even going to come up with anything with the way that he's doing things. I mean, or it's just talk and hype and then not deliver. I wouldn't be surprised.
that album is not coming out. Mark my
No.
words.
You will never hear it.
No.
You'll get your 2 box sets before you get that one, man. Trust me.
Yeah.
My number 9 is a band that started in the 70s, throughout the 70s, but in the 80s they got a little switch. I know that Phil Collins came into Genesis in the late 70s, but he really did take over that band throughout the 80s. So I'm going to go with 1991's Genesis, We Can't Dance, as my number 9. That was the CD that I can't find. And I know that nobody asked me if they can borrow it. It's got to be here somewhere. But my number 9 is Genesis, We Can't Dance.
I remember when that came out.
Yeah, I mean, now that had a lot of hits too. That had 4 or 5 songs that came off of there. That were
Well,
hits.
it's like, like Mark said before, every freaking Genesis or Phil Collins song you heard on the radio, at least every 10 minutes you heard one of their songs.
At that time.
Yeah.
And of
People
course-
forget how huge they were. I mean,
they
they
were
were
huge.
massive.
Yeah,
I know
massive.
a few, songs that from Genesis and a few from Phil, but I kind of get them all together. I couldn't tell some of them apart. So
I mean,
not
even
the huge-
Mike and the Mechanics had a hit. I mean, that,
Yeah, I
even the
really
side
like-
projects did well.
I like
yeah,
Mike.
they really did.
Poor Tony Banks just left out in the
Number
dirt.
8.
Yeah, he didn't have as much luck. Although I don't know, is there a Tony Banks side project? There probably was.
There
Yeah,
is.
he did solo albums.
Did he? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, he did several, but they weren't. But they were more like musical pieces or more towards classical and stuff like that. If it wasn't rock or pop or anything like that, that would sell to the masses. Jerry, we're at number 8.
All right, I missed Joseph. What was Joseph's pick? Because my internet was out.
Megadeth Euthanasia.
Oh, okay. My pick is from a cool band that I think I'm going to go with Dawkins Dysfunctional, 1995. I think that was supposed to be a Don Dawkins solo album, if I remember right. Then they just all reunited and did it. Am I correct on that? Do you guys know?
You are correct, because it's on my list too.
So freaking great tunes. Too High to Fly, man. Lesser of Two Evils. They're hot and heavy on that album, dude. Really, really good record, man. Was that 1995 or 96?
95.
Great
I
freaking.
think
I
it actually
owned it at
it
one
actually
time.
came
I
out
don't
in
know.
Japan. It actually came out in Japan a year before, and it was just I think it was just called Dokken. I think it was just self-titled in
You are
Japan.
right. Yeah. Actually, yeah, it was self-titled in Japan in I think 95, and I think it came out in America in 96, now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah, that was just a great freaking heavy
It was
record.
94 in Japan and 95 in America.
Oh, it was. Okay. I know it was right around there.
But that's my pick.
Now, I know that they were more popular in Japan at the time, but do you think they were trying to see what it was going to do in the market before they tried America?
A lot of those bands released stuff in Japan that was strictly Japan. Because that music was still huge in Japan in the 90s, man. That's why Mr. Big and all those bands they toured over there so much, because they were like kings over there. Over here they were like nobody, at that point. So they went to places. Yeah, Europe, Japan, South America, man, that music never died really. People loved it. So
I'm pretty sure if I remember correctly, it wasn't even ever supposed to come out in the U.S. It was supposed to be just a Japanese release, and then eventually I think they signed a new record contract or something, and Sony put it out over here. They redid some of the stuff.
I never heard of the album. I saw it in the $5 bin at Walmart, and I bought it. I never heard it was released or anything, man. So, but I was pleasantly surprised.
I only knew about it through Metal Edge magazine, who still they had an ad for it, and I mail ordered for it because I couldn't find it in a record store here.
Wow.
And later, we did several episodes with Michael Wagner, who produced it, and I was having lunch. Aaron and I had lunch with him, and it actually was like more than one occasion that I tried to get him to do an Albums Unleashed for Dysfunctional, because I love the record. And he would just shake his head and laugh. And he's like, there's too many stories that I can't share that I would like to, but let's just say the album title is very appropriate.
Yeah, Dysfunctional.
Oh, wow.
They were not
They've
getting
always
along.
been that way. They've always been freaking dysfunctional.
But it was like the height of their bad relationship.
Interesting. But they made a good album with all that animosity against, for each other, but they still put out a good product for us to listen to. Chris, which way are you going to go on number 8?
So for number 8, this came out in August of 90, so this is before the Nevermind thing, but I don't know that this album would have had legs either way, because I think this band's time had kind of passed, although now they're definitely doing well for themselves. I'm talking about Against the Law by Stryper that came out that year, and they brought in Tom Werman to produce, and they changed the color scheme. They went to blue instead of yellow, and it was a head scratcher for me, because they released the cover of Shining Star as the first single, and that I think that killed it. Nobody wanted to hear a cover of an Earth, Wind and Fire song by Stryper. It even turned me off at the time. I didn't buy this record till much later. But it's got songs on here that are killer, though. It's got Two-Time Woman's my favorite song on the record, but there's Not That Kind of Guy, Rock the People. The title track's good. Caught in the Middle is a great song. But it's just, and everybody was like, oh, this is them trying to make a non-Christian album. And Michael even admitted that. We had Michael at Rockin' Pod in 2019. And it's his least favorite album, but he also admits that he's like, it was due to the circumstances of the band. But musically, I think it's a really, really solid record.
I think they
Yeah.
still play the title track live.
Sometimes, yeah. But yeah, like Two Time Woman, that's definitely not a Christian song, but it's
No.
a killer song.
Joseph, what's your number 8?
All right, so I'll be touching on a band that Chris mentioned a little bit ago in his Metal Sludge rant, and that is from the tour that he mentioned, and that is Skid Row Subhuman Race. I think this is a really underrated album. It's not my favorite Skid Row album. I mean, I definitely prefer Slave to the Grind, but I think this is a very, very underrated album. I love to see that it's getting more love, especially now that they put that box set out last year, and a lot more people are revisiting this one if they get the box set. But I think it's a great album. It's kind of following along Slave to the Grind and continuing that heavier sound, and even going a little bit heavier. I mean, this is definitely their heaviest album, and it kind of borders on alternative and grunge a little bit, just with how heavy and sludgy this album is. And I think it's a great album. Anyone who is only familiar with the radio stuff, and might not even be familiar with Slave to the Grind, definitely check out Slave to the Grind and check this one out as well. It definitely, for the mid-90s, an album that got no kind of promotion or airplay or anything. It's a great album.
What do you guys think of Eric Gronwell, man? Think he's good?
Phenomenal.
He's
Saw him
awesome.
live.
Too. Yeah, I think he's good too.
The album was great too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I liked it. I don't think it lived up quite to the hype for me, but I liked it. There's several songs I liked. I like it better than those whatever that trilogy was they did before, the Revolutions per minute or whatever. Yeah.
What do you have for number 8?
Well, number 8, a band that got decimated by Beavis and Butthead. Stewart even wore their shirt, and I'm going Pulled by Winger.
Yeah.
Again, that was an album when I came out. I gotta admit, I didn't go out and buy it or anything like that. I ignored it myself, even though I wasn't ignoring the bands I really loved from that era. I wasn't one. I've touched on this on multiple occasions, and it's I don't understand how when the grunge revolution and all the alternative revolution came in, how people that were into this kind of music just completely turned their back on it and say, well, I'm not going to listen to rap or Motley Crue for me, I welcome the change, but it didn't make me throw out my Motley Crue, Rat, whatever albums from that to me, Soundgarden, sat next to Slayer or whatever, in my collection. It wasn't, I just didn't feel, I felt like, you can love both, and for me, for me, people that did that were like the real, people that were they were posers.
That's a poser. Yeah.
That's a poser. You jump on the bandwagon and you completely shun what you liked in the past. You know what I mean? So anyway, so Winger Pull, that came out. I remember seeing a video for Down Incognito on MTV, and I'm like, wow, this is pretty different for that, man. They're heavier and it's a little more serious. Again, a lot of these bands were the alternative bands kind of, I guess, made them reevaluate their look on music and kind of, the change to me was good. And, everybody always blames grunge for the change. But you know what? The scene was so watered down by third and fourth rate bands anyway that it was going to implode on itself anyway. It was just Nirvana's Nevermind was just that perfect storm moment where that's the album that everybody looks at when hair metal got killed and all that shit. You know what I mean? It's so anyway. But Winger Pull, I got it a little bit later, and I was like, damn, this is a really great album. It probably pretty much could be my favorite album by them as well. So yeah, that came out 93, and I remember Down Incognito on MTV. Blind Revolution, Mad's a great song. It's some killer songs on here. So, and their newest album that just came out is really great too, man. So their last few albums actually been great. So they're a band that's kind of, I think time has been kind of kind to them now. They're kind of coming back, and people are more accepting of them. But they sometimes it's still that little tinge of snicker towards them, but shit, man, fucking Kip Winger, he writes classical music and shit. So I mean, the guy's talented, man. So
yeah, I remember that era, man. It's like you got more respect listening to Barbra Streisand back then than you did fucking 80s music, man.
I know,
Seriously,
dude.
Man.
It was rough on them, man.
Yeah. And you nailed it with Winger's new album. If you didn't like the 80s Winger, check out their freaking new album, dude. It rules, man. I love it.
Really good.
It may be my favorite, man. It just rocks. It's heavy. It's nasty. I love it.
But I like the way that they stuck to their guns because they still have a little bit of their Winger sound, and they stuck to what they do well and what they love. Number 8 for Al was Winger, and my number 8 is going to be Bon Jovi's "Keep the Faith." I think this is a really good album by them. I kind of started ignoring them after New Jersey, and this album kind of got lost in between. But man, this album is really good. Dry Country is a really nice 9-minute rocker, man.
The solo on that song rules.
Yeah, it's a really good, not ballad, but an epic song that you really don't expect that much from them. And there's some really good bangers on this album. Of course, you got a couple of ballads, and I do like the Bon Jovi ballads, but not on this album. The bread and butter on "Keep the Faith" is their good rock songs on here. So my number 8 is going to be "Keep the Faith" by Bon Jovi.
Okay.
Those guys ruled the
I
80s.
gotta say, Bon Jovi weathered the storm very well in the 90s. I think they survived. For me, like it was like bands took like bands from that era, the 80s era, took like three. To me, they took like 3 approaches. They either got bluesier, they got more adult contemporary, or they got like heavier. You know what I mean? Those are like the 3 directions like a lot of those bands took. And to me, Bon Jovi kind of went in a more adult contemporary direction as their albums went on in the 90s. I mean, you hear them more on pop radio now than you hear them those other songs on rock radio. So, but yeah, Keep the Faith was kind of like that step. They still had the foot in like kind of the 80s a little bit, but you could tell where they were going. You know what I mean? So very transitional album for them.
And John cut his hair when that album came out. And everybody, that was a big news story.
That was a big deal.
John cut his hair
It really
off.
was when he got that haircut.
He got the Jennifer.
cut, but it wasn't. It was good cut, but it wasn't too. Yeah, it had the Jennifer Aniston.
So Jennifer, where do you think Jennifer Aniston got the idea from?
Hold on, I think I can do an Aniston here. Hold on. Let me see. No.
Well, I think John Bon Jovi was like the first one to cut his hair, like of the really big 80s hair guys. He was the first one to like cut his hair, and then everyone afterwards. I mean, everyone blames Metallica for cutting their hair.
And then Lars Ulrich's like, "Well, John did it, so we have to do it."
Yeah,
the trendsetter.
The trendsetter, John Bon Jovi. But he was my first that was the first concert I went to, was Bon Jovi's "Slippery When Wet" tour.
Oh,
with
nice.
Cinderella opening, right?
Yep. They were doing night songs.
Awesome.
Yeah. Cinderella opened, and I was in the 5th grade. It was a good time. My uncle and aunt took me. It was pretty cool, man. Good time.
That's cool.
All right, Jerry, what's your number 7?
Man, I've always tried to get into Bon Jovi, man. I really tried. I just couldn't, man. I mean, I know Al gets on me a lot for talking crap about Firehouse and stuff like that, but I just can't get into that type of music. I don't know.
I don't give you crap.
Yeah, you did. You came in that and that Kicks album. I can't remember which one it was. You were laying it on me. Like
It was
that
the
Kicks album.
No. Oh, no. Wait a second. You were saying that Kix' Midnight Dynamite was an awful album, yet the follow-up is a great album. To me, that's like, how do you fucking figure that?
Dude. It's
I like them
freaking-
both, but "Blow My Fuse" is a better record in my opinion.
Thank you.
Blow My Fuse is a better record,
Dude,
but Midnight
sounds-
Dynamite was.
It could be the production of it. Well, the production of Blow My Fuse wasn't that great either, but
It's
man,
ballsier
it
than
sounded
Midnight
like it was
Dynamite.
recorded in a fucking pay toilet, man. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's another podcast, I guess.
Wow.
my
That's
favorite's
all right,
still
man.
this one. Like nothing's gonna top
yeah.
that.
I have that on vinyl. Yeah, that's a
Same.
good one.
Which
God, they're a
one's that?
great
What
band,
was that
man.
one?
I'm
The-
glad
the-
they're packing it up. I'm
the
glad
debut.
they're packing it up while they still,
Oh yeah.
I'll be
Still have
at
their
their
dignity.
last show.
Oh, you're lucky.
I mean, they're a great band. I love Kicks.
It'll be my 10th time seeing them in the last like 5 years
You know-
because I'm from
you know
their
what's fun-
area.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
the
know,
area of Pennsylvania.
You know what's funny, man? It's like I've all these years of me going to concerts, I've never seen Kicks, man, ever.
Oh, they're so good.
One of the
live.
best shows you'll ever see.
No, I've had 3 chances to see them, and for some reason they've always canceled the 3 times I was going to go see them. And I'm like, dude, that must be destined for me, like not to see these guys. It's like so like they were just going to play in Sayreville, New Jersey, at the Starland Ballroom, and then Jimmy was it Chalfant that got the drummer, Jimmy
the
Chalfant,
heart
right?
Heart attack.
He had the heart attack or whatever, and they canceled the gig. I'm like, I mean, I wasn't pissed at him because of that, but I mean, I know, but I was like, damn, I'm destined like not to see this band. I'm thinking about going and seeing that last show. I'd like to go see them.
Well, I don't know, man. If you buy a ticket, then they're probably going to cancel the way
Right.
with your
Yeah,
track
please.
record.
Please
I
don't.
bet,
Please
yeah, then
don't.
I better not buy a ticket. Then.
You're on a bad streak right now.
Yeah, because it would be.
Yeah,
What if What if
I'm seeing
What
them
if I
2
do-
more times.
What if I just go to the
Wow.
door? What if I just go to the Wilco and buy a ticket there? You think something will happen as I'm buying?
The pavilion will fall down. It's at
Confirm that
Maryland,
the bus
pavilion
made
will
it
fall
to the
down
venue
again.
before you buy it.
Well, with
Fire
Jimmy,
marshal's
Jimmy
gonna
had his
come
heart attack on stage. Don't
Well,
even
that's
do
true.
that.
Yeah, wait till they're 2 songs in, maybe. I don't know.
Oh man, but yeah, great band. I mean, I've seen live footage of them, and obviously I love the records, but I just was always wanted to see them, and I never did. And I live in New Jersey, and they're from Maryland. And they were a staple around here, and I just one of those bands that I always missed. So
The coolest
Wow.
thing, I'm so excited. It's the last show. It's Kicks and Child's Play, so that's gonna be really cool.
Oh, nice.
It's,
Child's
I just saw Child's Play a couple months last month they did a reunion gig at the M3 Rock Festival, and then now they're opening up for Kicks for their last show.
All the original guys?
No, well the singer's dead,
Oh, I didn't know that.
but the rest of them, the rest of them were all there.
Wow.
Interesting. Jerry, what's your number 7?
My number 7 is from a band that should replace Anthrax in the Big Four, in my opinion. Talk about Testament, The Ritual.
That's a good one.
Great freaking record, man. As the Season's Gray, man, what a great freaking song that is, man. Chuck Billy, man, one of the great fucking singers of thrash, man. They're underrated band. They had great albums, man. The Legacy, New Order, Practice What You Preach, fucking whatever. I mean, just great records, dude. And they never got up to that era, that stage of Anthrax, Slayer, Metallica, and Megadeth, which I think they should have. They're one of my favorite bands from that era, so definitely have to mention them in my picks. That's my number. What is that? Number 7?
Number 7.
They're better than Slayer.
Testament was the thrash band from that era. That was like the musicians band. You know what I mean? Because Alex Skolnick was
Right.
a
Incredible
virtuoso
player.
and all that. You know, they were the ones that were like, the musicians loved them, dude. But like they never went the Metallica height or the Big Four. But I agree with you, man. I think, and I love Anthrax, dude. But I think Testament's like right there, or even above Anthrax for me. You know,
I
so
think so too.
And Testament still sounds great. I mean, I saw that Bay Strikes Back tour last year with Testament, Exodus, and Death Angel, and that was one of the best shows I've ever seen. I mean, just they sounded so good, and I was at one of like the 6 shows that I got to see Dave Lombardo. So
Right on.
yeah.
they still sound amazing.
Yeah, well, they still got it because their last few albums, even their last few albums during the 2010s, have been very good as well. I mean, they're still.
Yeah, they put out a lot of strong stuff, man.
Chris, what's your number 7?
Well, we're gonna go back to the Bon Jovi love. So I'm picking. I almost picked Keep the Faith because I do like that record, but I'm gonna pick 1995's These Days. I think it's the last top to bottom good Bon Jovi record, and there are too many ballads on it, but I do like ballads, and Bon Jovi were kind of the masters of writing rock and roll ballads back in the
Yeah, they
day.
are.
So. And Richie's playing on that record. Richie Sambora, very underrated because John gets all the attention and they're known as the Pretty Boy Band, but Richie Sambora is a killer guitar player, and there's a lot of really tasty solos on this record. So, These Days is my number 7.
That's my favorite Bon Jovi '90s album. Like after like their heyday, that
Mhm.
is like that's the one that I would pick if I didn't pick that one, but if I was gonna pick one for this list, that would have been the one, man. Yeah, that's a great one. I love that one.
Yeah, I may not like that kind of music, but I always respected the musicianship, man. Richie's a great guitar player, dude. I mean,
His
all those
solo-
guys, great guitar
his solo-
players in that genre.
Yeah, his solo album, "Stranger in His Town," is a good album. Man.
Great
If you never
record.
checked that one out, you know.
Yeah.
But
So
they do need to get back together, though.
I think he is coming back to the band.
is
He
he?
kind of he confirmed it in an interview recently. But I mean, John can't sing anymore, so
Yeah.
Yes,
is
I-
Richie
Yeah, I
gonna
was
sing
just
everything?
oof.
At least the
John-
guitar playing might distract from the singing. I don't know.
Yeah.
Unless John gets some help or something, man. I don't know.
Please use tapes, John. Please. And I don't like guys that use tapes, but if you're gonna went out there, use them.
But the thing is that Richie Sambora does fill in some really good backing vocals in there, so maybe they'll work something out where he sings a lot more in the backing vocals to hide.
Yeah. He's always been the better
have
singer
that.
anyway.
Hey, at
Yeah.
least the choruses will sound great. The verses,
Yeah.
Yeah, right. And that's what I'm saying. Maybe Rich can fill that in a little bit more, and just they can sing together and harmonize. Joseph, what do you got at number 7?
So, a band that Jerry just mentioned that I completely agree they should not be in the Big Four, but definitely probably their second best album to me is with not their classic lineup, and that's Anthrax, Sound of White Noise. I mean,
Hey, now you're talking, man. I do like John Bush. Man.
that's the John Bush era is my favorite era of Anthrax. I love Joey
Same here.
Belladonna, and I love
That's the only person I don't like. I like the guy that sang on their first album. I always forget his name.
Neil
Neil
Turbin.
Turbin.
Yes, and I like the John Bush era, but I just don't. I can't stand Joey Belladonna's voice. Everybody said he sounded so good doing that Journey stuff.
No, I didn't. think he did.
That was rough for me, man. Sorry.
Yeah, I didn't.
I love Journey. We both showed off that Neil Sean CD, but I didn't think he sounded great. But no, the John Bush era of Anthrax is definitely my go-to Anthrax. I mean, whether it's this, Stomp 442, We Come For You All, Threat Is Real, any of that stuff. I mean, this is a great era for Anthrax, and I love the first album, and I love Spreading the Disease, but the rest of the Joey Belladonna stuff you can have. But when John Bush came into the band, I think he lit a fire under this band, and they really found a sound, and they went for it. It's so many great songs on this album and on all the John Bush albums, but this album especially really just sticks out to me as one of their best albums.
That takes me back to high school anytime I see that record. Yeah.
My favorite from them is the Joey Belladonna one. It's Among the Living. I love Among the Living. I think that's just a thrasher from beginning to end. It's a great album. Al, what's your number 7?
My number 7 is I love the guitar player, and the band sometimes gets divided, gets a lot of hate, but it gets a lot of love from the guitar players. But I'm going with Extreme, 3 Sides to Every Story. I'm a huge Nuno Betancourt fan. I'm a guitar player, so I've always loved Nuno's playing, and I think this album is a great album. They really stretched out. They made it sort of a concept album, 3 sides, and I think there's some great stuff on here. I mean, when it came out, I mean, it was still, it was still like right in that lane where like some of these bands were still getting noticed and they were getting airplay. I mean, MTV was playing, Rest in Peace video, and I mean, it wasn't like Nirvana's Nevermind came out and all of a sudden like the gate came down and like you didn't see these bands anymore. I mean, if you look at the 92, 93, I mean, MTV was still playing like they were playing like Poison Stand video. They were doing, they were playing like some of these bands' videos. So it wasn't like, it was like, boom, you're done, dead, see you later. You know what I'm saying? It was kind of like, it wasn't like right, smack on that date when Nevermind came out when, all right, you're done. You know what I mean? So this came out after, and this still got like some airplay, but it wasn't as big as Pornography. So they, obviously they were the More Than Words band. So obviously like it didn't sell like 5 million albums. So, hey, it only sold 1 million. So you're a failure, or it only went gold. You know what I mean? So, but I like the album. I think the production's great. I think a lot of songs are great on here, and they were stretching out. And this is kind of like the Queen influence really comes out on this album because they love Queen. So I'm going with Extreme Three Sides Every Story, number 7.
My number 7 is a band that was
Man,
really good.
hold on, Andy. There was crickets on that one, man. Nobody said nothing. Anyway,
I'm not a fan of that record. I'm sorry. Try not to be mean.
no, it's fine, dude. I'm like, the silence is deafening. It speaks for itself.
I know, we talk about
I'm sorry, Al. You say 3 sides and I tune out. I'm just saying.
Okay,
I hear Extreme and I tune out. But
I don't know if I've ever listened to a full Extreme album.
okay.
yeah, Mark's talking about how great their new album is. I tried listening to it. It's terrible, man. I'm sorry, man.
I like a few songs. There's some weird songs on it though.
Man, I know. It's just
There's like electronica stuff on the, and I'm like, what are they doing with that? But
Nuno needs to go back with Rihanna.
Nuno's amazing. I listen for the
absolutely.
solos, but yeah, but there's some songs where I'm like, what are they doing? But anyway,
I know because we've been making comments after each album, and then when Al said his, we're okay.
I'm like, wait, hold on. Wait, hold on. There's like nothing.
my mom taught me to. Anyway,
My next one might be like that.
Go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, the only anything nice to say, don't say it, right?
hey, I got crickets for Striper Against the Law, so
That's like the only Striper album I don't
No,
like.
I like it. So.
I love the rest of their discography.
Mine, this one might get crickets. I'm not too sure, but my number 7. This was a huge band in the 80s, and when they made their first album of the 90s, it was my favorite album that they ever released. U2's Achtung Baby. They really went into the 90s with a head full of steam, a completely different album from anything that they ever released from up to that point and since, really. This is full of great songs from beginning to end. So Achtung Baby by U2 is my
Was
number.
that the one they released after Rattle and Hum, right afterwards?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. That's when I stopped liking
I
it, was
think-
after Rattle and Hum.
I'm a U2 fan, so I love that. I think that's a great album. That was the beginning of their real experimental stage. They're really channeling Bowie's like Berlin period. That was like their era, like for that album. They hung out in Germany. They soaked up all like the sounds in Germany at the time, and that's what they came out with. They were the influence of like German dance music and shit. It's all over that album, but I think they took it and made it I think they made a great album. I love Achtung Baby. That's a great album. So I mean, U2 is a very divisive band. They're very polarizing. I love U2. So
Is that the album with Mysterious Ways on it?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
I dig that song.
Mysterious Ways.
I'll say that.
it's got good stuff on it. It's one of their more ambitious records, and also I think that's the one they're going to be playing in full at the Sphere thing in Vegas, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Have you seen the little mini documentary about that?
No, I have not.
Go on YouTube and watch it because they're showing it. It's still being built, but they're showing like what it's going to look like when it's insane, like a complete 360-degree like experience. So, if a rock or a metal band does a thing there, I might have to go to Vegas to see it because it looks awesome.
Yeah, and to do an album like that, it's pretty. Like Al was saying, that they're very decisive, very divisive band. And when they came out with that album, it was completely different from anything else. And that's why I liked it so much, because they sounded fresh going into a new decade. So
they were not scared to take chances. That's for sure.
Oh, no, they were not. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, they sell out stadiums and auditoriums. I mean, what the hell do I know? So
yeah. I've seen them once, and then one time I saw them was a great experience. It was a really good show. I mean, they sounded great. In fact, I got there late, so I missed the opener, which I was hoping to get to. Muse opened up that show, Muse, M-U-S-E, and I really wanted to check them out.
I saw that tour. And I saw Muse open up, and then Muse was great. Yeah. So.
Yeah, trying to fight Houston traffic on a Friday at 5. I wasn't going to make it from one end of the town to the next. But I got there right when Muse was getting off the stage. I was like, man, that sucks. But let's move on. Jerry, number 6.
My number 6 is from the great Cinderella, man, Still Climbing.
Nice.
Great record. I think it was. I mean, this is pretty much. It was doomed because of the time period. It was supposed to be released, I think, in '92, but then Tom had voice issues, and it got, I don't know, pushed back to like 95, 96, something like that. I don't know. I can't remember. I might be wrong on all that, but it's a good album. I mean, really heavy. Again, like Dokken and all those guys, they got really heavy in this era. I think, in my opinion, man. Dead Attitude Shuffle, man, great tune.
That's a good song.
Of course, Fred Curry don't play drums on it again. Why does he not play drums on
play
it?
on any of them.
Does anybody know why he doesn't play on
He
that
played,
album?
he played on Heartbreak Station. That's the only album he played on.
It's got to be. I
yeah.
guess it's got to be his time. He's got to be bad at keeping time. That's all I can figure. Or he can't play to a click or something. I don't know.
It's Kenny Aronoff, I guess, did drums on this album, which is
and everyone else's album.
Yeah, great fucking drummer, man. John Cougar. I first heard of him when he would play with John Cougar. I think.
He just started a podcast. Did you guys know that?
Oh, no, I didn't hear that.
No, I gotta check that out. Really, huh?
Yeah, good interview show.
But yeah. Anyway, that's
Well,
my
he
number.
probably interviewed everyone he's ever played for. Now that would be cool.
He'll never run out of guests if that's the case.
That'll be
Yeah,
a good couple hundred episodes.
Tom Kiefer Band's coming to Nashville.
Yeah.
Come.
It's in August at the Ryman.
Yeah, I might
Highly recommended. Great,
Tom
great
Kiefer,
band.
Karabi,
John Corabi,
Winger.
and Winger. Yeah, that's gonna be an awesome show.
They're playing here like next week, I think.
They're
Why
going to be here like in the middle of July, I think, something like that.
Yeah, I'll definitely go to the Ryman show. That'll be great.
And
Kiefer has one hell of a band.
Sure.
Yeah, he's great.
What was I going to say? I was going to say something. Oh well, no, just well. So why did he be credited as being in the band but didn't play on the records?
I don't get it.
Or look, or
Look, it's a producer's. Sometimes like drummers they're not up to snuff in the studio. They're not. He might be good live and whatever, but I think it's a producer's choice, or even Tom Kiefer probably. He didn't play on the first album. He wasn't even in the band when the first album was recorded, so that's out. On the second album, Cozy Powell played on that one, Long Cold Winter, and also from Montrose, Danny Carmassi played on the second one.
Great
But Fred Curry did play on Heartbreak Station, so I don't know what the hell. Maybe they gave him a chance of let's put him finally on an album or something. I don't know.
I guess I could blame him for why I hate that album so much.
Yeah, I saw
really.
I saw Cinderella live 3 times.
I hate
saw
that
him live
album.
3 times.
Oh, that album's great.
He sounded awesome. I thought live. I don't get
Well,
it.
It's kind of the same thing with Tim Gaines, the bassist from Stryper. He was never on any of the albums, but he was on all the tours and he was credited on every single one of the albums.
Yeah.
But every time they went into the studio, they found some reason not to use him.
Well, he's a bit of a nut, but that's a side
that's
story.
That's why Perry Strickland's in the band now, and everyone's much
big time,
much better for it.
I got to do a war of words with him last year on Facebook, but anyway, that's for another time.
He seems like a bit out there.
That's putting it mildly, but all right.
Number 6, Chris.
Okay, so Aaron Camaro, my co-host, can't be here, but I'm going to represent him with my next pick. But I really feel strongly about this record. This one came out in 1993. It's Enough's Enough. Animals with Human Intelligence. It was their third record that came out, and kind of everything went off a cliff after this record. This was kind of the last one they really had major label support with, and man, it's such a good record, and everything was in place for them to really take off, and they were on Letterman promoting this record. Howard Stern was a big fan, would have them on. Yeah. They had so much behind them, and then like the song tracks, like at Superstitious, Right by Your Side, which is an incredible ballad. These Days, Innocence is a great ballad. One Step Closer to You. There's not a bad Rockin' World ends the record. There's not a bad song on the whole thing. This could have ranked even higher on my list now that I'm really looking at the track listing. But if you haven't checked out Animals with Human Intelligence, it's an amazing record.
Yeah, that's a great one, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, enough's enough, man. They're that band that gets lumped in with the Flyhammer
Yeah.
show. They Herb, but they were good, dude. They were like really. I dug that, man. Yeah, I really dig that album that Jake E. Lee played on.
Mhm.
Dissonance. I don't know
Yeah,
if you like that
Dissonance
one.
that's a great album. Yeah, I like everything they did in that. During some stuff, pretty lo-fi. Once you get past this record, it's everything sounds like demos from this point on. But
Yeah.
in the lineup they had Derek Frigo, who could really shred on guitar, and Vicky Fox on drums, who wound up playing with Vince Neil, I think, right after this. And but they were just so good. But there's a lot of behind the scenes stories about Donnie V and fucking up their opportunities, and there's a lot of drama that comes along with that band.
Gotcha.
And it's sad. I've seen them 3 times in the last couple of years at the M3 Rock Festival. They've never played a single song off that album.
No, they never do.
They
And
never
I know and Donnie goes out and plays, and I don't think he plays anything off of it either. But
No, I agree, it's a great album.
And I'm happy
Yeah,
that Chip's still carrying the
Yeah.
flag and doing it, but man, they're just not the same without Donnie singing for them.
Yeah, I saw Donnie open for Zebra last year.
Oh, you went to
And,
that?
Yeah, I went to that, and he was good, man. I
Yeah.
dug him. I saw him like walking kind of backstage, and I just like, hey, what's up, man? And I had the I had the Dissonance CD, and it was already signed by Chip, and then he signed it for me, so it was cool. I have both their signatures on there, So he was cool. He was a nice guy, man. He was like kind of in a hurry to go backstage, so I wanted to get the picture with him, but I didn't ask him. But he was good though. He was good.
He's a real character.
Yeah.
Kind of had that feeling that, I better not ask him. He's in a rush. I'm glad.
Yeah.
Al, I was really expecting pictures with you and Brian Adams the other night, man.
Hey,
He meets everybody. It's like
I put some of his show up on YouTube, and boom, it got taken down. Copyright strike.
No shit.
Oh
really?
no!
I can believe it.
I'm like, dude, I got copyright strikes from the people that you would never even like. Brian Adams game. Richard Marks fucking took his video down, and I'm like, dude, you should be happy. Like, I'm getting your shit out on like YouTube.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
it's like you're getting paid for it, right?
It's not like it's not 1989 for you, buddy. You know what I mean? But
It's not like somebody's going to be like, well, I saw Al Horta's video on YouTube, so therefore I will not buy a ticket to go see him live. It doesn't work like that.
No.
Man. Ricky Rackman was nice to me though. He actually emailed me and he was like, "Hey, dude, I'm still kind of torn behind my spoken word show. Can you take your video down so that people can still come see me?" And he was cool about it. I'm like, I respect that. He actually emailed me personally and contacted me through social media, and he was like, "Can you take it down?" And I respect it. I'm like, "Yeah, dude, I'll take it down." You know what I mean? I don't want to infringe on your, because I mean, Ricky Rackman's not like he's packing out stadiums and shit. So the guy needs to work and eat. So I respect the guy's wishes. So, but that was nice of him. He actually came to me and he was like, "If you don't mind, can you take it down?" I'm like, "All right, yeah, no problem."
Right.
So.
Really?
But Brian Adams, dude, come on! It's not like I'm gonna cut into your underlying ticket sales, dude. You play
I think he's another weird dude from some of the things I've heard about him. He's another kind of touchy.
The real savior of Kiss, though, man. He wrote War Machine. Come on,
And Eric Carr co-wrote "Don't Leave Me Lonely" for the Cuts Like a Knife album.
Yep.
I was hoping he'd play War Machine, but that didn't happen.
That would be funny.
Did Joan Jett open up for him?
Yeah, her show's up on my YouTube. If you want to check out her set. She played a solid hour, and she was really good. So,
awesome.
Yeah.
She fits a lot of songs in her set. She really doesn't mess around between songs. She just song.
Yeah, boom.
She fits a lot of songs in her sets.
I think she released a single maybe a couple weeks
Her
ago.
new stuff's good.
It was all right. It was all right, man.
Yeah.
It sounded fresh. All right, where are we at, Joseph?
All right, so this is the one that might get some crickets. This is definitely another kind of out of left field pick, and this is of the ones on my list where I said I was going to get. Definitely going to get
one of those.
Definitely going to get one in my list where it definitely sold a lot of copies, and this is an artist who was the king of the '80s and made probably, I think, the definitive late 70s pop disco album, made a definitive early 80s pop album, made a definitive late 80s pop album, and I think with this he made the definitive early 90s pop album, and that's Michael Jackson with Dangerous.
Nothing
I
wrong
think
with
this
that, man.
One of his best albums.
A great record.
This one really is special to me. This is one of my first Michael Jackson albums I ever heard, and there's something for everybody on this one. Really, like there's so many great songs. I mean, Slash is on this album, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
So,
Dude, Michael Jackson's awesome, bro.
Yeah.
I got no problem with him, dude.
yeah, but this is one of my favorite Michael Jackson albums. I prefer this to Thriller, and I know that's sacrilege to a lot of people, but I think the songwriting on this, and I mean, with Michael Jackson really kind of being an early proponent of the New Jack Swing kind of style of music, and really jumping on with the producers and everything.
Yeah.
I think this is a great album. I mean, so many recognizable songs: "Black or White," "Remember the Time," the really soppy ballad that I hate, "Heal the World." But everything else on this
Remember
album
that.
is so good. But I mean, Slash's guitar playing on "Give In to Me" is great. Just really phenomenal album. This is kind of my sellout of pick of the list of the one that actually got a ton of mainstream recognition.
That was a big record. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Does that have
that's
Bad in the Mirror on it?
No, that was on Bad.
That was on
from
Bad.
'87.
Okay. Yeah, Dangerous was a big hit for him too. In fact, I think Remember the Time had that long ass video with
The video was cool as hell.
Eddie,
yeah.
Eddie Murphy and David Bowie's wife.
Is it
Iman?
Iman?
Iman? Yeah.
That's where they had all those African dancers. It was kind of like that scene in Coming to America
Mhm.
Yeah, it was like an Egyptian themed music
Yeah.
video.
video. Yeah, it was a long
Yeah.
one too.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, most of his videos were pretty long back then.
Yeah, of course. Yeah,
Yeah.
they were. Al, what's your number 6?
Here's a bit of trivia about Dangerous. What album knocked that off of the #1 spot?
Oh, jeez.
Never mind, by Nirvana.
Yep.
No, was it really?
Yep.
Because this Dangerous came out after Nevermind.
No, it came out before that.
Nevermind was September. That was December.
Dangerous in
Uh-oh.
'91.
Dangerous
sure
was
about that?
December. Dangerous was December of '91 because I checked all my dates because I didn't want to put anything from before
Oh well,
Nevermind.
you know what? No. But yes, Nevermind still knocked off the #1 spot because you got to
so it
remember.
would have been later.
Yeah,
Yeah,
It would have been later, yeah, because Nevermind didn't hit It wasn't a #1 right out of the gate. It had that build through '92. So I guess when Michael Jackson was #1, then Nevermind kind of had that build and knocked it off #1 spot.
Yeah, because Nevermind wasn't a big hit. When it came
Yeah,
out,
right off the bat,
people didn't rush to go get the Nirvana the day it came out. It
yeah.
was something that built kind of like Appetite. Had
Yeah.
a couple of years to build.
And I know I asked this question on. I think Jerry and Andy might know this one, but maybe Chris might not know it. So what's the album? What's the album that knocked Nevermind off of the #1 spot?
Oh, jeez. I have no idea.
Def
Def
Leppard, Adrenalize.
Oh,
gee,
God.
that was on one of the episodes recently.
that was on BS a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was.
And I really hope nobody on this panel picks that album for this list.
No, not me.
Put it
Oh,
away.
so
Just kidding.
one of my biggest buyer's remorse moments was listening to that record, going, "What
Not
the
a
hell did I
single
just
good
buy?"
song on that album.
Make love like a man.
Make
Not
love like a man.
single good song on
That's
that
what
album.
I am.
Awful.
Every time I hear "Let's Get Rocked" on the radio, I turn the station.
Oh
That's
yeah.
their,
I suppose the rock's out of the question.
Yeah, what's that,
That's,
Mark? If you're listening or watching, you better not be watching. You better be fucking enjoying your vacation. By the way,
He probably loves that
commenting a little
record.
bit. He was
posted
commenting a
few
little bit
things,
ago.
so.
Yeah, he
Make-
said
make-
that he was going to go.
Make Love Like a Man is their Read My Body.
Oh,
Such a
man.
terrible song. And I almost put Slang in it on my almost Rans list, but I decided against it because I went back and listened to it a few months ago, and I'm like, man, this is just not good.
Al,
I think I
Bang
tried to
Bang
like
Ye-
it.
Bang Bang Ye was worse than Read My Body, I think. But
Well,
I'd agree with that.
But both
My
were
way is
bad.
worse than all of them.
But it was a good song to teach you how to count.
Yeah.
1,
2,
3, 4.
Paul Stanley in that fucking phone. Ah, Jesus, man.
All right, well, listen.
We're not starting on the Crazy Nights train.
No.
No.
All right, well, listen.
I
My
just did
number
a
6.
review on that album, so I'm still kind of like, ugh, from it.
All right, well,
Hold on, such a bad album.
continuing the show. My number 6 is same as Jerry's number 6. It's Still Climbing by Cinderella. I'm not going to dwell too long on it. I think it's a great album. It's kind of a return. It's kind of like them between their bluesy sound and night songs. So it's kind of like a happy medium, in my opinion, between the two. They kind of went back to sort of that heavier sound, but still
Yeah.
bluesy, whatever. But I like the album. I think it was a great album that got ignored in the 90s. Nobody was buying Cinderella albums in 94. So, but it's a great album. If you ever get a chance to get it. So that's my number 6.
Yeah, I always liked Jeff the Bar, man. That dude was always just cool. And that
Yeah.
year that you had him as your guest, Chris, I was supposed to go, but I got sick. But
Oh, we never actually officially had him as a rockin' podcast. I mean, he hung out at. Well, he came to the comedy show in 2018.
Oh, that's
and
what it was. Okay.
and he was hammered drunk with the rest of us
Really?
after the show out on the corner, and then
Yeah.
Ian Wadley was just completely like busting his balls and making some funny jokes, and he had him laughing, and then he's like, I gotta get going, and he goes and gets his Jeep or whatever he was driving, and then he's like, be careful driving out there, and then he like skids out in front of onto the road.
Oh,
He was like
shit. He was
Oh, he was-
driving?
drunk as hell. Yeah,
Fuck.
we're like, oh
Yeah,
shit,
he had some demons, I know that.
he had a lot of drinking problems. Yeah.
I just thought he was always cool, man. It's
Very
just-
funny
yeah.
guy. I ran into him several times over the last few years of his life, and he was always super nice.
Yeah, I got to meet him too, and he was really cool, man.
Yeah.
Me and him, it was funny. It was after a Cinderella gig. Like, God, this is probably got to go back 10 years, probably the last time they toured. And I met like them out front. Well, I met Jeff and Fred out front of the venue. They were just hanging out. Like, there was some fans that hung around, and I was talking to Jeff. I was talking about guitar stuff here, and it's just like a bunch of girls just kind of circled around us, like waiting to like talk to him and shit. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm just talking guitar gear with this guy, and he was like really engaged, So I was like, hey, listen, I don't want to keep anybody else waiting, so I kind of. And he was like, nah, that's cool, and he was a real nice guy, dude, and it's a shame he passed. He's too young, but he had his,
Yeah.
I guess he had his problems. So
Yeah.
anyway, go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, my number 6 is going to be a band that started out in the 70s, but in the mid 80s they got a new lead singer, and in the mid 80s to when this being their last album with him, they kind of changed their sound and became more popular than ever. But my number 6, I love this album quite a bit actually, but it's Van Halen's Balance.
I love that album, man.
Yeah, it's
People
really good.
people are gonna crap on it because it's Sammy, but I dig that album.
Yeah,
What are you
So
talking
good
about?
one. I like this one. I was
yeah, I heard your last episode, Chris. It was that you actually had me in stitches, bro. It's so funny.
All tongue in cheek, all for entertainment.
Oh, no,
I have
dude.
I have respect for saying Dave can't sing for shit now. So anyway,
but,
Oh, and I want to
good
and I
album.
want to and I want to thank you for the birthday shout out you and Aaron gave me. Thank you.
you're welcome, man.
I'm sorry, Andy. Go ahead.
No, man, I was just going to say that it was a really good album. I think the songs on there were very well written and very well performed. They had towards I think one of the last tracks was a really good instrumental, which was really good. So my number 6 is Balance by Van Halen.
Dude, I'm not a fan of that, but where the hell did you get that on vinyl?
Dude, I found it at a used bookstore for like $5.
Wow,
Dude, you know how
Yeah.
much that's worth?
No
that's worth a
shit.
lot more than
That's a
$5.
lot of money, dude.
Yeah, but I found it
Yeah.
for $5.
Wow.
You got a deal of the fucking century there, bro.
No shit.
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah. Dude, it's so funny how sometimes you straight gold at like these thrift stores and shit.
Yeah.
I found a Prince CD. It was the oh god, I can't. It's a triple CD. I can't
Emancipation?
remember the name of it. I can't. Huh?
Was it Emancipation?
No, it wasn't that one. It was a different one. Crystal Ball, I think, was the name of it.
Crystal Ball, yeah.
Yeah, it was was a triple CD. It was only like $2. I looked it up. It was like fucking going for $150, man. I was like, holy shit. You know,
Find that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was a CD. It was triple CD, but supposedly it's out of print and all that, and people paying a lot of money for it. So I was like, damn, that's a good.
It was
like,
one of his
story.
late '90s stuff that's all out of print now.
Yeah. So. All right, man.
Number 5. We're halfway there, Jerry.
My number 5 is an album that kind of like pissed me off in a way. Everybody was like, Glenn Tipton and KK Downing were the best guitar duo of the 80s. I respect them. I disagree with that. I always thought Dave Murray and Adrian Smith were a little bit better, in my opinion, just my opinion. But this album, Adrian Smith left and didn't do this thing. Johnny Garris took over. I didn't like it at first, but I listened to it a lot the last few years, and I really like it more now. Fear of the Dark, Iron Maiden.
I like that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, Johnny Garris, people make fun of him. I mean, if you go to a show, you might catch his guitar if you're in the audience, but he pretty much doesn't really.
I don't think he even plays anymore. He just dances.
I guess it was cool to keep him in the band, I guess, but
yeah.
Out of that band, Adrian Smith and Dave Murray, man, are still a freaking great combo, dude. And they're my favorite of all time. Guitar.
I was afraid you're going to pick a Blaze Era album for a second.
Too.
Hey, man, I like the Blaze. I'm a Maiden nut swinger, dude. I'm going to lie to you. I am getting one of those fucking things.
I had my sound effects ready if you were going to pick a Blaze album.
I admit the dude. I admit his voice. He can sing, but I admit I can see why he didn't like his voice with Maiden. I get that. I mean, I don't know. Just me. I like the X Factor and Virtual XI, so sue me.
Steve Harris seems to have always been clean, but those years make me wonder.
The sad part, the songs they're mostly bad. They're not awful. I mean, some of
they
the
weren't
ones
selling out anywhere either in that era.
Oh,
I mean, they needed Bruce back bad.
when Bruce sings some of those Blaze songs, they're okay. But I mean,
yeah, he does the Klansman quite a few times.
Yeah,
but
I just saw him do the Klansman last fall, and I mean, this day and age, when you go see Iron Maiden, you're basically seeing 5 musicians and a stripper. But
Oh man.
But yeah, I mean,
try the VO.
It grew on me. I wasn't really a huge fan of it at first. I mean, I liked No Prayer for the Dying. I thought that was a great record. This was,
Yeah, it really was.
That's my favorite '90s Maiden album. Is No Prayer.
But, this one here is my favorite one on the '90s now.
Yeah,
Best thing until Brave New World in 2000.
Yeah.
Man, Brave
Well, I
New
like
World was
a matter of Matter of Life and Death. I thought that's one of the better ones in the 2000s. So
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I think
That
that
ass out
Brave
cover.
gave them a whole new life.
Yep.
And really re-kick-started them again, reignited what they were before. So, what's your number 5, Mr. Chris?
This will be a divisive one. I'm sure some of you are not going to like this choice, but I happen to have a lot of love for this record. It came out in 1997 and was issued by a band who didn't even have the same lineup anymore. I'm talking about Carnival of Souls by Kiss.
I like that album.
Love that album, man.
Probably should have come out in 95 or 6, I think, and they shelved it. But it came out later, and I had I was in college, and the internet was very young, and it was one of the first leaked albums I remember on the internet, and you could download a file of it, and that would take forever. And then, I think it took 2 days for the whole record to download. And my roommate at the time was a radio DJ who had really good gear. So we figured out how to transfer it from the computer onto a cassette tape so I could play it in my car because I still had a cassette player. And it sounded like absolute garbage, but I still felt like the man because I was hearing an unreleased Kiss record. And I kept thinking, well, this is going to sound way better when the official version comes out. It really didn't sound that much better, but I just have a fondness for how grungy it sounds, and I'm actually personal friends with Toby Wright, who produced it, and we did a 2-part special at his house about the making of it.
Great
and
special.
Yeah, thank you. And Tony, I mean, Toby was brought in purely because he had worked with Alice in Chains on Jar of Flies and some other stuff, and he knew that grunge sound, and that's what they were wanting. So everybody's like, "Man, Toby didn't produce it well." I'm like, he produced it the way they wanted him to produce it. But it's got great stuff on there. I think Hate is a great track. I think Jungle's an awesome track.
Yeah.
Master and Slave has a great riff. My favorite Bruce solo on the whole thing is Seduction of the Innocent, which I don't know that the song is that great. The chorus is good, but the solo on that song is one of the highlights of Bruce's career, in my opinion. Nobody ever seems to bring it up, but I love that album.
The production on the album sounds like the cover looks.
It does, yeah. Well, the
was-
official cover or the unreleased cover?
The one on the CD. Well, they both suck. They both suck. But
Yeah.
I was gonna pick a Kiss album just because of I know Chris's history with this particular album, but I didn't. But if I just hold the CD up here and I'll just pass.
Oh God.
Nah.
One of my favorite rock and metal combat podcast episodes is just you lambasting Ralph about We Are One for like 15 minutes.
Oh yeah. Ralph gives me shit for liking Tears Are Falling, but professes that he thinks We Are One is a good song. I was like, I don't know, you're on
I like
track.
them both, so I'll play both sides on that one.
We Are One is a great Coca-Cola jingle. It's not a good Kiss song.
By that time, there wasn't such a good a thing as a good Kiss song anymore. It was just a good song that happened to be by Kiss.
If you haven't listened to Decibel Geek, I'll have to find the link for you. But Aaron's told the story a couple times. He was a wedding DJ, and he had his own CDs, and they didn't have a song list picked out. So for the bride and groom dance, he picked "I Finally Found My Way to You," and got like the dirtiest look from the bride and her family and everybody. They hated him for it.
Of all the songs,
It's only ballad on the record. So
alrighty.
Next, Joseph,
Alrighty. So
number 5.
Yes, yeah. My number 5 is from a band who had a very, very big album at the beginning of the 90s that I'm not a huge fan of. It's one of the only albums by that band that I don't like. And I think they made a much better album later in 95 that did not sell nearly as much, and that is Ballbreaker by AC/DC. I think it's a great album. I mean, other than Cover You in Oil, I'm not a big fan of, but Rest Hard as a Rock, Hail Caesar, The Fuhrer, Boogeyman, Honey Roll, so many great songs on here. And I think it's much more stripped down hard rock than the previous albums, even going back to like the early mid 80s. This kind of really returns them to their like basic hard rock roots after, I mean, Razor's Edge was the biggest thing they'd ever done since Back in Black. And I think they really kind of stripped back, and I really like what they did, and I've liked almost every album they've put out since this. And I'm really hoping they do another album now that they're possibly thinking about touring. And I really hope they put out another album because Power Up was one of my favorite albums in the past couple of years.
Power Up was really good. It really was. It was surprisingly really good. It really was.
You always
With a
know what
tour.
you're getting with AC/DC, man. You don't have to wait for you. You don't get no surprises. That's for sure.
You know, earlier today, I was at work and the rocker came out, and I was thinking that was like 74 or 75, right? The rocker, the track. And
Yeah.
I was, man, this is really a heavy track for that time because no one sounded like AC/DC at that time. They really came out as trailblazing pioneers for hard rock. They really did, and they don't get enough respect as them doing that. They're a great band and they're world renowned. They're a household name. Everybody loves them, but they're more than just that. They are pioneers of the sound and of hard rock.
I think this day and age it's cool to kind of hate on AC/DC, like every album sounds the same, every song
I got no problem with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's the fact that they put out almost 20 albums and that they're still putting out that much quality. I mean, on Power Up, and the one song that kind of sounded a little bit different, I mean, it had some odd time signatures, Through the Mists of Time was my favorite song on that album.
That's a great song.
Great song. And it's just to be 50 years into their career and putting out one of my favorite songs from their entire discography.
It's crazy.
And it's just,
It just shows how talented they are. It really does.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and for them to still be doing it, and for fans to be pretty giddy about them hitting the road. I mean, that's big news that they're going to be hitting the road, and people are excited about it. Again, with Brian Johnson at the helm. Al, what do you got for number 4 or 5? 5, right?
5. Yeah, 5. This was mentioned before, but I love this album. It's Dawkins Dysfunctional. I think Jerry was the one that mentioned it before. If you really love, they really showed the Beatles' influence on this album with the harmonies and all that stuff. And check out the second song on there, "Hole in My Head," man. If that doesn't remind you and make you think of like it's King's X, I mean, it really does sound like them. I remember hearing that, and I'm like, dude, they must have been listening to King's X or something around this time because, and oddly enough, later on, KXM with George Lynch and Doug Pinnick, it's kind of funny, but going back to 95, they were definitely listening to King's X on some of this album. You can hear the influence on here. Inside Looking Out, it's grade 1, Too High to Fly. And I love the cover of From the Beginning by ELP on here. I thought it was really cool cover. And I got this CD. It was like, because I belong to, obviously, like most of us did, Columbia House and BMG. And but I actually belonged to them, and they had a dollar bin like kind of section, and this was in the dollar bin, and I was like, yeah, Dockin', man, I gotta get this, man. I love Dockin'. So that's how I got it. I got it for like $1, and I didn't regret it, man. I played it a lot that year, 95. It was like, and my friends would get in my car because that's like in the middle of like the alternative era and stuff. I'm like, what are you listening to? And I'm like, I don't know, man. Try to guess, and they could never guess. I'm like, Dockin'. I'm like, get the fuck out of here. That's not Dockin', because it kind of didn't sound like 80s Dockin' really. So, but I love the album. I thought it was great. So that's my number 5.
Yeah, that seems to be a popular 90s album by them. That
Yeah.
is mentioned a lot.
It's definitely better than the follow-up.
Well, thank God you didn't pick Shadow Life.
Jesus Christ.
Ooh, what a bad record.
That's a bad one, yeah.
My
That should definitely be forgotten in the 90s.
my number 5 is going to be I talked about this last week on the Black Spinner Circle when Mark Alden Taylor and I did Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers when we ranked their albums. But my number 5 for the 90s is going to be Tom Petty's Into the Great Wide Open. This is a fantastic record from beginning to end. And the great thing about Tom Petty is that he sure did change a lot, from era to era. This was the beginning of his, well, I don't even know what to call it, like his roots rock era maybe, but just a solid rock and roll record. And he really embraced the sound, and he carried it with him throughout the 90s. So Into the Great Wide Open, that's going to be my number 5.
That's a great record.
Yeah. Tom Petty's one of those artists that stayed relevant in every decade that he was in, you know what I mean?
Yeah, he really did.
Timeless.
Yeah.
I mean, even his last album was a really good record, and it's a shame that we lost him because he was really in an upswing in his releases and his shows. So, God bless Tom Petty. But yeah, that's my number 5.
Watch the documentary if you haven't seen it. It's really good.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Which one would that one be? Because there's
Running Down a Dream.
Okay.
It's like 3 hours long. It's his whole life. It's his whole career, and you can watch it free on Tubi, I think.
Tubi has so much great documentaries. A lot of music documentaries on there. I love Tubi.
I liked his documentary on the Wildflowers album too. That was really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was another good album too. Wildflowers. Jerry, what's your number 4? Number 3.
My number 3 is, I actually had met
It's number 4.
there's
Number 4.
4.
It is 4. We are at number 4.
I actually had the pleasure of meeting their new singer at Rockin' Pod this year. Nice guy, young kid. I didn't know he was that young. Brett Carlisle, man, that guy is young, isn't he?
He's like 21, I think.
He's so young that when I saw him come out on stage a couple weeks ago, when I saw him live, he came out onto the stage with wheelie shoes.
Yeah, he does wear wheelie shoes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But the album I'm talking about is Hooked.
nice.
Great White. Another great record. I think this is the last one with the classic lineup. Am I right about that? They pretty much split into two factions, didn't they? After that,
Which album is that one? Hook?
What year was Hooked?
94?
something
93?
like that. Yeah.
Yeah, that is. I think that is the last one.
It was what, Psycho Motel and then Hooked.
No,
Mhm.
Psycho Motel was after, I think, wasn't it?
Psycho
No.
Motel was
It
91
was like
Oh,
91.
okay. Okay.
because that's on my also ran list.
There's some good songs on here. Desert Moon, Loving Kind, man. It's a pretty good album.
Desert Moon is like an opening track for them,
Yeah.
like
Yeah,
all
that's
the time
what-
now.
That's what they opened with when I saw them was Desert Moon.
Yeah,
This is a band like LA Guns that just need to put the two bands together again, man. Enough of these
Yeah.
two bands going around shit, man.
I saw them open for Kiss in '92 on the Revenge tour, and they were great. Trickster also opened. That's a different story, but
The one when I saw Revenge Tour was Trickster and Faster
Faster.
Pussycat.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
it was just Trickster in South Florida when I was living there.
When they started to lift the COVID restrictions and people started turning in, the first show I saw after that was Jack Russell's Great White with Winger. That was a pretty good show. It was
Jack
really
still sounds good. He's falling
Yeah.
apart as a human, but he still
Alright.
sounds good.
horrible, but man, he was.
He has to sit down, but he can sing.
Yeah, his voice still sounds the same. It's
Yeah,
crazy.
the voice was the same. I mean, when he came on stage, I knew that he had looked bad. But I was like, "Damn, dude, are you gonna make it through?" And he
He's
sure
in
did.
rough shape.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he
A
sure
lot
did.
of mileage on those guys in the 80s, man. A lot
He
of
lived the lifestyle among most people. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's still there, and he's still doing a good job of doing it. You know, so
Yeah.
that's what counts.
But yet they outlived the '90s grunge guys because most
Yeah.
of those guys are dead.
Right.
Different
Stick
drugs.
to cocaine and tequila. Yeah, just
That's
yeah.
better,
Don't
yeah.
do the heroin.
It's better for you.
Although Kevin Dubrow may have something to say about that.
Yeah.
Brad Delp too.
Yeah.
Well, he
number-
killed himself. Right?
Brad Delp just suffocated himself, didn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brad Delp.
Wow.
Tragic. Probably my favorite rock singer of all time, too.
Oh, he sounds fantastic.
Incredible range. Yeah.
I mean, just sounds so good. Chris, what's your number 4?
All right. So Joseph brought up Anthrax earlier with Sound of White Noise, and that was possibly going to be one of my picks because I mean it's a classic record, but this is my favorite, and I prefer the John Bush era more over the Belladonna era, although I do love both. But this is the most underrated album in Anthrax's catalog, and I wish it got more love, and that's Volume 8, The Threat Is Real, that came out in '98.
Oh, okay.
There is some goofy stuff on here where it's kind of like there's filler tracks that are stupid, and I think that hurts it. But man, like the opening track is Crush, then it goes into Catharsis, then Inside Out. Those three, I'll put those three opening songs over just about anything else in their catalog. There's also Killing Box has a Philip Anselmo, cameo. Toast of the Extras is not even a metal song, but it's a good song. Let's see, Hogtide's an amazing riff. The riffing on this record is some of the best riffs Anthrax has ever written is on Volume 8, The Threat Is Real. So if you haven't checked it out and you're tuned out of Anthrax, highly recommend you check it out.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Good album, dude. I mean, all the Bush era albums I liked in the '90s, dude. I mean, that's a good one, dude.
Well, obviously I would have picked We've Come For You All, but that wasn't in the 90s. So, but
Yeah.
but that album right there, that should have been a huge record.
Yeah.
Good
Definitely.
pick. That's something that I really do need to revisit, the John Bush era. I kind of skipped that because I really do like the Joey Belladonna, and then went here and went there, but I really do need to revisit that.
John Bush has just done nothing but put out amazing albums for the last 40 years. I mean,
Yeah.
the entire Armored Saint catalog and then his entire run with Anthrax.
And he another guy who sounds exactly the same now as he did back in the 80s. It's crazy how well his voice is held up. And then was that a few years ago Metallica did this I think it was their 30th anniversary concert series.
Yeah.
And he was they were considering John Bush to be brought into the band to be like the lead singer because James didn't want to do it.
Want to sing, yeah.
And so like they did like a what if thing, and Bush got up and did Four Horsemen with him, and it fucking kills. It just sounds amazing. If you haven't seen it, go on YouTube and watch it. It's you could like I could hear Metallica with him singing totally.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah, definitely.
Wow.
That's a freaking compliment there, man.
Yeah.
I want him to be the singer
Yeah, it
of
is.
Metallica.
Mm.
Yeah. All
Wow.
right. So
You're number 4.
so my top 4, I am massively cheating on all of these. My top 4 are all 2 albums from the same band that I could not choose between all these bands, multiple albums.
Oh, come on.
But when
no.
you hear the albums, you'll know exactly, like, they fit together very
Okay.
well. So the first one, it was a band, and I mean, I'm not surprising anyone here by saying 2 people on this chat are wearing the band on their shirt. And a band that really kind of languished in the late 80s in not knowing where they wanted to be, and then tried to come back with a couple albums and mixed results. But then in 93, when everyone heard that first bass line on Stick It Out, I mean, I don't have the CD with me, but Counterparts and then Test for Echo. I mean,
Yes,
just
sir.
2 amazing albums right in a row that just got them back to a really, really good, solid rock sound that just took them really back to what the core of Rush was. Stripped down, really rock. Still had the progressive elements. Still had some of the keyboard stuff in there, but not nearly as heavy as the stuff from the late '80s. But just 2 phenomenal albums. I mean, even if you just look at the singles, I mean, it's the best singles Rush had done in years. I mean, Animate, Stick It Out, Driven, so many great stuff. And I mean, they still
Half the
played. I
World.
mean, yeah, to the
Cold
last.
Flower.
Yeah, to their last tour, they still played a great amount of songs from those albums, just because they were such really return to form albums for Rush. But I mean, Counterparts and then Test for Echo. I mean, it's a great back to back shot of getting people back into Rush and reminding people of how amazing of a band Rush was.
Well,
Love
you're
them.
right. Back to back to those did. They do go together, so you're not disqualified.
I love Counterparts.
Well, what's up, Al?
No, I say I love Counterparts, man. Test for Echo
Me too.
hasn't aged as well with me, though, to be honest with you.
Really?
And everybody knows how huge of a Rush fan I am. I think Counterparts blows Test for Echo away, in my opinion.
Of the 2,
Um,
Counterparts is definitely my favorite. Yeah.
Yeah. That one, man, when I first heard Stick It Out, I was like, damn, Alex is back, man. Fucking heavy and the way it should be, crunchy and not that I didn't that Roll the Bones or any of those albums before had like some good great stuff on it, but this was like, yeah, they needed to come back in a big way like that, in an era where all these heavy bands were like a lot of these alternative bands were citing Rush at that point as like an influence too. Soundgarden loved them, and Alice in Chains and all that stuff. So Smashing Pumpkins. So they came back, man. And it's good. And that Counterparts tour was great. I could have. I mean, I not that I hate Candlebox. I like them, but they could have picked a better opener. Like I think they would have been great if they had King's X open for them. That would have been an awesome double bill. But yeah, Counterparts, great album, dude. That's a good pick.
Well, what's your number 4, Al?
My number 4, gonna go with Badlands, Voodoo Highway.
Oh man, I forgot about
Nice.
that one.
That's a good
I
record.
love that album, and I think this is the only album on my list that actually kind of predates Nevermind by a few months. But at this point in '91, you can sense the scene changing already. Anyway, but yeah, I love this album, man. I'm a huge Jakey Lee fan. Ray Gillen's a phenomenal singer, and I thought this album just got pushed aside. Even they talked about how Atlantic Records didn't give them any real support when this album came out and stuff, so it kind of got buried. But shit, man, there's some great songs on here, man. The Last Time, Show Me the Way, You know, they do a great Fire and Rain by James Taylor on here. You know, go ahead. What?
Oh no, I just said oh wow because I love Fire and Rain. That's a great
Yeah,
track.
Fire and Rain. They do a great cover of it on here. Whiskey
Yeah.
Dove.
In a Dream, isn't that on there?
In a Dream.
Silver Horses is a great song. 3 Day Funk. You know, it's just top to bottom a great blues hard rock album, and you know, and it's one of my favorite albums, man, like of the '90s. So it's number 4 for me. Voodoo Highway by Badlands.
That album caused me to piss off Eric Singer.
Why is that?
I met him in '98 at a KISS convention, and
Would you
I
have
truly
tried to sign it?
No, I didn't ask him to sign it, but I had him sign something else. But I had a total brain fart, and I was like, I said, I love your work with Badlands, and I was like, yes, and I said especially the second album. I don't know why I was forgetting that he didn't play on it, because
Yeah.
I do love the drumming on that album. And he looked up, he's like, well, I didn't play on that one. Thanks a lot. And he was really mad.
Yeah, Jeff Martin played drums on that one.
The singer from Racer X played drums on the second album.
You know what's funny?
Very talented.
You know what's funny? I always had this weird thing about Badlands. You know, when Ray Gillen passed away and that was it, I always thought like they could have. I mean, obviously Jeff Martin's a very different vocal style than Ray Gillen, but I almost thought they could have pulled like a Genesis and had him come out and become like the lead singer. You know what I mean? Because he was the lead singer of Racer X, but it's totally completely different style of singing, so probably wouldn't have worked. But I just had this weird thought of me, like imagine if they pulled a Genesis and continued on like with him as lead singer, you know. But yeah, but that's my number 4. So
good one.
My number 4 is a Megadeth album. Here's the CD right here. But it's going to be Countdown to Extinction. That's the album that I got introduced to Megadeth on, and then I worked my way back and then forwards, of course. But that was always one of my favorite ones. You know, they were all over MTV. Their sound was, you know, as I start to compare it to others, I wouldn't call it mainstream, but it was like thrash scream, if that makes sense. It was, you know, a little bit more accessible on this album. So Countdown to Extinction is my number 4 on this list.
Well, that's
buying that on release day.
That's their counter to the Black Album, I guess. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
I was obsessed with that album for like the first 2 weeks that it was out, and because I bought it on release day, and it was all I listened to for like two weeks solid. But I don't go back to it that often anymore. It's weird.
There's some really good stuff on that album, but there's some other stuff I'm just like, if I never hear Symphony of Destruction again, I will not be upset.
One of the most badass riffs ever, though. Man.
It's a great riff.
Yeah, the riff's great, but
I mean, it's fucking
as a song, I've never been a huge fan of that song.
My drummer in my band used to always screw up lyrics, like interpreting them. And there's the whole line of you try to take his pulse before the head explodes. He thought Dave was saying you try to take his balls before the head explodes. What an idiot.
You know, this song doesn't make sense at all.
Next time you hear it, you'll never hear it the same way again, now that I've told you that.
Hey, at least now I'll have a reason to actually listen to the song and laugh. So
it'll give you a laugh.
Thank you for that.
Number 3, Jerry.
All right, time to bring out the weenie. This one, again, is definitely wasn't thrown away. Probably one of the biggest albums in history.
Oh, I haven't heard of that one.
Yeah. I definitely didn't. I definitely didn't spend $300 buying a giant box set for that album. Definitely
Spinal
not.
Tap?
No.
Yeah.
There's
Debbie Gibson
none more
rules.
black.
My favorite. I love Debbie Gibson. You know. So, yeah.
Electric
This
Youth.
album, like it or not, I know people are like either sick of it or they like it's sold out or whatever. But man, this album was a fucking monster, dude, and it still is today, man. I mean, I still hear it on Sirius and regular FM radio out here in Cookeville, Tennessee. So I mean,
it's really an album that slipped. It's really an album that slipped through the cracks, man.
But I mean, what can you say about this album? Except that it's a freaking monster album, dude.
Yeah.
It slipped through about 15 million cracks.
But even all the deep cuts could have been singles.
Yeah.
Yeah, the deep cuts are great.
There is no such thing as a deep cut on that album.
No.
Wow.
But that album, it's how was Metallica going to respond going into a new decade, and they responded very well with their change. A lot of people didn't like their change, but sometimes change had to be done going into a whole new decade. They had to. If not, who knows what might have happened if they came out with another And Justice for All or another sound like that. So they had to change.
They didn't respond well after this album, but
no, they did not. No, they didn't.
No, I agree though, Jerry. I don't care what anyone says. I love the Black Album. I cut it off there, but I love the Black Album.
I mean, if I never heard another song off it again, I would be all right. But I wouldn't turn it off at the same time if I heard it. I haven't heard this CD in probably 10 years. So
it's the 90s Dark Side of the Moon.
Okay.
I agree with that.
It's that legendary.
I haven't heard it in a while. It's still a really good album. I still like it quite a bit. Chris, what's your number 3?
I don't know that you guys are gonna. Well, some of you, I know Al's gonna probably be familiar with this. Jerry might. I don't know about you guys, the other two. It's Tora Tora's Wild America. It was their sophomore album that came out in '92, and this was Tora Tora. I grew up in Tennessee, so Tora Tora in the Memphis scene with them and Roxy Blue and Every Mother's Nightmare in the early '90s was like there was word of mouth that got up to Nashville about those bands. So they were kind of hometown heroes, even though they were from Memphis and I'm from Nashville. But I followed them, and I had an older cousin. Then her and her boyfriend used to go see all these bands, and then she'd report back to me about, oh, you got to check these bands out. And I liked the Surprise Attack, the first record that had their biggest hit, which was in '89 with Walking Shoes and Guilty. That was when I discovered them, like everyone else. But Wild America, if you haven't checked it out, the top to bottom, that's by far their strongest record. It's way better than Surprise Attack. Has there's not a clunker on the whole thing. And we had Anthony on to do an Albums Unleashed on that, and where he talked about the making of the record and the writing of all the tracks. And they get the Memphis Horns to play on a couple of songs, and Stan Lynch from Tom Petty's band plays drums on a couple of songs on it. And it's recorded at Ardent Studios, which is famous for Big Star recording their records there and a lot of other artists. So amazing sounding record, great songwriting. Also, if you're a fan of like the old school Tesla stuff, you'll like this. It's really good. Wild America by Tora Tora.
I mean, I've heard of the band, but I'm not that familiar with their music.
Yeah, nice guy. He was at Rocket Pod.
Yeah, Anthony comes every year.
Nice guy. I got a picture with him, signed the CD. It was really cool, dude, man.
Yeah, and they played. We booked them to play in the second year, and they put on a hell of a show. Yeah, they were great.
Yeah, I saw them a couple of years ago as well. I think they played one song off that. I think they played Amnesia.
Yeah, they still do that one
from that. But they were great. They were great.
Yeah.
Good pick, Joseph. What's your number 3?
All right, continuing from my last pick on bands that spent the entirety of the 80s or the late 80s pissing off their fan base and then just miraculously coming back in the 90s and reminding everyone how great of a band they are. Cheap Trick. So between this and then I don't have the really overly expensive Amazing 97 album to hold up next to it, but between Woke Up With a Monster and the 97 self-titled, I mean, just two phenomenal albums that after a pretty decent amount of time of just kind of losing the plot and not putting out great albums, between this and the 97 album, just two phenomenal albums that really brought them back to their roots and showed everyone how great of a band they still could be even in the 90s. I mean, just the title track off Woke Up With a Monster is one of the catchiest songs of their later career. And I mean, just still the hooks and the talent and the songwriting of this band, even into the mid and late 90s. We Woke Up With a Monster and the self-titled 97 album, just two amazing albums.
One of the best live bands ever, man. I think they might be the best live band ever, man. I don't know. Well,
they tell you at the beginning of every show.
Yeah.
That they are.
Rockford's own.
Hey, they back it up, man. They do. So I haven't seen them without Bunny though. I haven't seen them in a while, so I don't know if they're.
I heard they're
good or
still
not.
great with even without
Yeah.
her.
Yeah, well, you would think that the front guys will carry it. Al, what's your number 3?
Joseph must have been reading my mind, man, because this is like incredible. But yeah, that Cheap Trick '97 album, that's my number 3. This Cheap Trick album, for me, it's like first 4 albums, then this album is like my favorites, dude. I mean, it's top 5 Cheap Trick album for me. The amazing comeback that they Woke Up a Monster was good. There's a little tinge of filler on there. To me, there's no filler on this album. This is just top to bottom, killer album. I mean, Say Goodbye is like one of my favorite songs, dude, like by them. I love that song so much. Like the melodic nature of that song. And Robin Zander is on my, there was a Mount Rushmore of my favorite vocalists, he's one of them on there because he's just that incredible. He's my personal Mount Rushmore. He's one of the 4 guys on there. And this album is Say Goodbye is great. Shelter, if that doesn't make you misty-eyed like that song, I mean you're not living. You know what I mean? You check your pulse. So I mean, You Were Wrong All Along, 8 Miles Low, Carnival Game. It's all just a great album, and they just sound great on here, man. I'm desperately wanting a vinyl release of this album. They need to reissue this album. I bought the CD when it first came out, though, and it came with a bonus disc of they had 2 songs in there. They did with Steve Albini producing, and and it was a cover of a Move song, Brontosaurus, because they love Roy Wood. That's like one of their idols, you know, and they did Steve Albini. You can find it on the internet, but I do have a bootleg CD of it. They re-recorded the In Color album with him producing, and it's incredible. Like, it's awesome. If you have the original In Color, try to find the Steve Albini produced In Color and compare the 2, man. It's like it's got more crunch to it and more of a modern production, but it's still great. So anyway, Cheap Trick '97, that's my number 3. Love that album. Bits, man.
Good one.
Yeah, Robin Zander, man, one of the cheese.
Man,
I mean, just try to sing some of this stuff. Like, I'll try to sing If You Want My Love. That'll send you to the hospital trying to reach those fucking notes.
I know, dude. I know.
Amazing singer, dude.
He's an incredible singer, man, and he should be ranked up there with like the Robert Plants and the Freddie Mercury's and all that. To me, he's up there, man. He's in my one of my top 4, dude. If it was a Mount Rushmore, he's one of them. So, go ahead, Andy.
Yeah, my number 3, this band came out in the 70s. They were really big in the 70s. Lost their way during the mid-80s a little bit, but they made a really good comeback. But how were they going to go into the 90s? And I think they did a really good job. Aerosmith's Get a Grip, I think, was a really good album. Yeah, they had the big hits that kept them on MTV and on Modern Rock Radio, but the album tracks on here are really good. There's some really good guitar playing on here, and some really good interplay between the guitarists, of course, and really good stuff on Get a Grip. I think even though there's a lot that it's got a lot of big hits, there was still I think this is kind of an overlooked album for them. Get a Grip. So that's my number 3.
I like that one.
I think that's like their best-selling album as well. I think that's the highest-selling album.
Yeah, that album was another monster album when it came out. Yeah.
I thought Eat the Rich was a great song. Yeah.
Even bigger than Pump. There's some good. I mean, they kind of. I started kind of losing myself with Aerosmith on that album, but I have revisited here and there, and there are some good deep cuts on there. If you really dig into the album, there's some good stuff.
I really like what was supposed to be the original album, the one that they kind of got shelved, and about half of it ended up on the actual album. The other half of it was never released, and it was a heavier album. it was before they had to like the label made them put all the really cheesy like ballads and stuff on the album.
Yeah.
But the stuff that survived is some of the best stuff on the album. But there's a way I think I saw somebody created like the original, what the original would have sounded like.
Right.
And it's a really, really cool kind of listen because it's really different from what the album ended up sounding like.
The other tracks are out there?
Yes, I think so. Like as demos, I guess.
I'll have to try to find that. I'd be interested to hear that.
Yeah. Somebody shared it a couple weeks ago on Facebook. I guess maybe just like Google Aerosmith original Get a Grip.
Okay, cool.
So am I
That
the only one that
takes me
likes
right
Just
back
Push
to high
Play?
school.
What?
Do what?
Am I the only one that likes Just Push Play?
Probably.
Probably.
Yeah, I kind of stopped listening after this one.
I just pushed stop.
Right. It was so,
I just never bought it.
Yeah, you're smarter than me.
I got it. I just don't. I do not play that one very often, if at all. But Perry was saying that they might not be releasing new music at all, but they are going to be releasing some stuff that is very unreleased.
Archival stuff.
Yeah, archival
Good.
stuff.
They probably have a bunch of cool stuff.
Yes, so that would be interesting what they do with it. So looking forward to that from the guys. Okay, guys, we are in the top two. Jerry, what do you got in your number two?
All right, my number two is Dave Mustaine. You can retire now because you're higher up on my list than Metallica's album. So you can just retire now and enjoy the rest of it. Because you're number two. Rest in peace, man. I love Marty Friedman, dude. Great addition to the freaking
Masterpiece.
band. Hangar 18. Fucking just loaded with fucking great killer metal, man.
Yeah.
I think it's their best album, in my opinion. So definitely a burner. I loved it. Still love it. Still listen to it quite often.
Yeah, you can't really argue that, man.
Awful CD pressing though. Atrocious remix.
And I don't know. I think every one of my jewel cases has a crack, man. I don't know what happened.
You're talking about the remixes that Mustaine had done. Oh,
yeah. That's that one. I have it's somewhere. I made sure to get, especially of that album, the original, because it's actually I think that album specifically, it's different vocal tracks on a lot of the songs.
Oh no, I'll stick to my original version.
Yeah, I definitely. I think he lost some of the original masters, and he had to re-record stuff.
Should have just left it alone.
Hey, but just note, that was 3 different Megadeth albums on this list.
Yeah,
Right, that was 3 different ones.
They
The only
represented
remix-
strong.
The only remix that's really worthy is the first album. Kind of brings more out in it because
That's the
first
one that
album,
needed it.
it's the one I really needed it. Yeah, it was so lo-fi and so, that a remix was definitely needed on that one. So that's probably the only remix that is kind of recommended. Other than that, like stick with the originals with all the other albums.
Yeah.
Cool stuff. Chris, what's your number 2?
Well, I don't have to belabor it long because it's already been listed before. But for me, my number 2 is Warrant's Dog Eat Dog. It's just an incredible record, and we did the interview with Michael Wagner about the making of it, and that just helped me appreciate it even more. But so many amazing songs on that record, and the one oddball that kind of sticks out is a song called "Sad Teresa," which because it doesn't fit the same theme and vibe of the record. But that's because that was a song that they played in their club days all the time. That was a big crowd favorite. And I guess their fans had kept pushing them. You got to record that song. And that's how it wound up. But it's actually one of my favorite songs on the record. I love that song.
Wow. Yeah, I really need to revisit that because it's been a long time. And 2 of y'all chose that. Is that correct? 2 of y'all?
Yeah, that was my number 10. Which
It was my
now,
number 9. It was my number
Jerry chose it too.
yeah, it could have. I
So
feel like
3
it could have been higher on my list, but there's just so many,
It could have been It could have been my number 1. I was waffling between that and what my number 1 is, which I think is going to be on everyone else's list.
Yeah, my number 1 was like the one I knew for certain, like number
Yeah.
1.
Oh, right off the bat, my number 1 came right to my mind.
Yeah, we all know what it is going to be.
Let's see, because now I'm very intrigued. What's your number 2, Joseph?
Alrighty, so the last of my cheating twofer picks. These are the only 2 albums recorded by this particular lineup of the band, and I think it's a really interesting lineup. I mean, you definitely have the classic lineup of this band, and then the lineup from after these two albums that would exist till the end of the band. And this was kind of a really interesting period. They never really moved away from their sound, but these two albums, I think, were the best albums they had released in years. And of course, I'm talking about Motorhead, Bastards, and Sacrifice. I mean, after
Both
a couple
awesome.
albums where they just, I mean, they didn't really move away from their sound, but it was kind of a little bit unfocused. These two albums just came born back, and then the lineup being Lemmy, Wurzel, Phil, and Mickey D. I mean, Mickey D really just really shot this band in the arm, and these two albums are just absolutely classic. I mean, just heavy as they had been in years, and I mean, just right from the beginning of Bastards with On Your Feet or On Your Knees, Burner, Death or Glory, just right out the gate, you're in for it from there, and then Sacrifice as well. I mean, there was a lot of tension in the band at that time with Wurzel and everything. I mean, there were days where he just wouldn't show up to record his stuff, but they produced such a great album with the title track Sacrifice all the way through one of the most underrated Motorhead songs, Out of the Sun. I mean, just two absolutely kick-ass albums of a band who really needed a shot in the arm. And I think this is what these two albums are what set them up for the rest of their career, and they never really lost the momentum that these albums gave them.
Wow.
Yeah, their whole run from there on, man, was quality. Like,
Yeah.
I never really thought Motorhead really put out a really bad album. I always loved all their albums, man. And some more than others, but I never thought any of their albums were awful or anything like that. So,
I think those two albums came at a point where they were just starting to kind of tip over the edge a little bit with March or Die, but then they never fully went over the edge, and then these two albums that I mentioned just really brought them back.
yeah.
Awesome, good ones. Number 2, Al.
Well, shit, if Joseph can pick 2 CDs by 2 albums by band, I'm gonna one up them and just pick the whole fucking discography of this band. Nah, I'm just kidding. But it's by, I mean, it's a band that was never big to begin with, but they were big with musicians. I mean, I'm talking about King's X, but I'm gonna go with the 1996 release of Ear Candy. I think
Great
that one
album.
always, everybody always points to Dogman as like the album that was going to be big, and they never got big. But this follow-up album, Ear Candy, they were still on Atlantic Records, and I think it kind of just got a bit lost because they didn't. People were expecting them to break through with the Dogman after Woodstock '94. Everybody was like, "This band's they're finally gonna get their due. They're gonna break big," and they never did. And Ear Candy was the follow-up, and I remember, getting this album, and I was blown away. I loved it, dude. I was like, it wasn't Dogman, but it was them just kind of going back into a little more of a melodic, their pre-Dogman, because Dogman was a pretty heavy album for them. It was, let's face it, was like, I'm not going to call it grunge, but it was like kind of their grunge album, like down-tuned and stuff like that. This one, although they were down-tuning before the grunge band, so that's why a lot of grunge bands cite them as an influence. But this one opens up with The Train, which is a great song. A Box is an incredible song. Mississippi Moon, Ty Tabor sings that one. Great song. Lies in the Sand, Life Gone By, Picture. I mean, it's just a quality album. If you've never heard it, try it out. It's Ear Candy by King's X, released in '96. So, and it's their last album on the Atlantic Records, and then they got dropped from them, and they went to Metal Blade after that. So, but this is a great album, and I always loved it. It's an underrated. I mean, every King's X album is pretty much underrated, but I think this one's really should be discovered more by fans of that kind of melodic, heavy, Beatlesque kind of as vocals and all that stuff. So anyway, I love King's X, one of my favorite bands. So they're number 2.
I think I got Ear Candy in the 5-disc thing I bought.
Yeah.
It's in the original album series box set.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'll give it a listen to because I haven't heard that one yet.
Yeah, it's a great one, dude.
It's awesome.
It gets overshadowed by Dogman,
Yeah. I also love Tapehead.
Yeah, Tapehead's great too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will check it out. My number 2. This is going to be the second time that this band has been on this list. I'm going with Razor's Edge by AC/DC.
Right
This
on.
is a really good album that really brought them back. This was the best album that they had made since For Those About to Rock, We Salute You. They kind of lost their way, in my opinion, a little bit. There, even though the other albums were still okay to listen to, but man, Thunderstruck, Fire Your Guns, Money Talks, the title track to the Razor's Edge is really good too. And Got You by the Balls, Are You Ready? Dude, this was a really good album. So my
And,
number-
and let's not forget the holiday favorite, "Mistress for Christmas."
yeah,
Greatest Christmas song ever written.
Boy, you must hate Christmas, Chris.
You don't like that song?
it's okay.
The one rock
It's fun
station.
to listen to at the end of
on
the year.
that album.
The one.
Really
There's
good.
one rock station here in New Jersey. Every time the holiday season comes around, you always start hearing "Mistress for Christmas" on there. It's funny, man. But it's
Honest-
cool though.
On a side note, Tom Kiefer does a great Blue Christmas cover.
Oh, cool.
Wow. Yeah, I can see that with his voice.
It's awesome. Yeah.
I'll check that out. All right, guys, we're at number 1. Gary, what is your number 1 album?
You guys probably gonna think number 1, really? I don't care. This is one of my favorite bands from the '80s. One of the only bands that me and Mark Alden Taylor actually love talking about all the time. They got lumped together with all the hair metal bands in the '80s, but they were so much better than all of them. Talking about Tesla, Bust a Nut, man. I fucking love this album.
Wow.
Don't apologize at all. I love every album from Tesla except for Shock. We know the reason why, but
Because it's a
I
Def Leppard
fucking
album.
love this album. I love Tommy Seagull. I love Frank Hannon, man. Great fucking guitar players, dude. I'm not apologizing for that being my number 1, dude. So
That's a great pick.
Great album. Great album.
That almost made my list, man.
really,
That's a really good album.
probably my second favorite behind their debut. I think, in my opinion.
Wow.
I like that they actually they still acknowledge almost all their albums. I can't remember what song it was I saw them play off that last year when I saw them, but they played something. But
They have a new live album out that just came out like
Yeah.
a week ago. It's really
Yeah.
good.
Oh wow.
Probably Mama's Fool. Probably Mama's Fool, right?
let me find out real quick here.
Probably
Yeah,
Mama's
Mama's
Fool.
Fool. Yeah, it was Mama's Fool.
The new live album, they do a cover of SOS by Aerosmith.
Nice.
Wow. Yeah. You know what?
Every one of my freaking jewel case has a fucking crack in them, man.
Same, and you see how I keep mine. So
That's why I
Yeah,
stick
I
to
have a
mine.
feeling if I went to your house, you wouldn't let me touch that for some reason. I just had that feeling.
let's just put it this way: this is very carefully set this way. This thing fell on me one time, so
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
shit.
man.
Ow.
they are quite literally bolted to the wall.
Yeah, you need to bolt those things
But,
to the wall.
Yeah,
I didn't really do the
That's
plus
a good
5.
pick.
I mean, I hear Black from fucking Overkill is good, I guess. I didn't do too much thinking in that one. Sorry, guys, as far as the honorable mention. So,
Oh, we could do the mentions after, right?
Yeah, afterwards.
oh, I like I said, I didn't know about the plus 5. I clearly did a brain fart on that one, so I'm gonna make.
No, that's
all
right. That's not a big deal, but your top 10 were really good, Gary. Chris, what's your number 1?
Oh, this is the least surprising one to me. That when anyone thinks of great 80s bands that release something that is amazing in the 90s, almost everyone has the same determination, at least in my circles, and that's the self-titled Motley Crue album from 1994. That's
Yes,
my
sir.
number 1. Is that yours too, Joseph? Al?
Yes.
Yeah, so all three of us picked. I knew that was going to be the case.
I did also want to give a really a good shout out to Exposed as well. I mean,
That's a good record too.
not nearly as good as this.
No, not nearly.
but a little bit of a shout out.
But no, the Motley '94 record is a classic. It's a masterpiece. If it wasn't that during those times that it was released, we'd be viewing it as one of the biggest rock records ever. I think. I do honestly think.
Yeah.
There's no bad songs on it. It's their best playing. It's some of their best writing, and Karabi. It's definitely their best singing because I think Karabi's a better singer. But just awesome thing. And if I can plug Decibel Geek real fast. we
Oh,
did
yeah.
do a 2-part Albums Unleashed in a bar in East Nashville with John Corabi. And man, it was like 3 hours total of talking. And
I love that
Amazing
episode. Man.
episodes.
thank you. And I learned not to go drink for drink with John Corabi in a bar because we were all so drunk walking out of that place. But he had so many stories to share. And once you get him going and he's got a couple drinks in him, he spilled the beans on so much stuff. But so many amazing songs on that record, just incredible songwriting. It's one of those. It came out in 94, but it could have easily come out at another time and you wouldn't know the difference.
Yeah,
What's your take on the album, Joseph?
100% agree. Yeah, this was like as soon as Andy told me what the topic of this was,
Me too.
First thing, boom, Motley 94. Like it was figuring everything else out. I knew exactly what my number one was. Without that, I mean, this is to me, and I know I've talked about this with Jerry before on several of our podcasts we've done together. This is the saving grace of Motley Crue's discography.
Mm.
If it were not for this and Shout at the Devil, I would not own a Motley Crue CD.
Oh wow!
I think that this is light years ahead of everything that they did other than Shout at the Devil, and I think that this is just like Chris said, front to back, every song just amazing. Production is absolutely killer. John Corabi sounds amazing. The songwriting is great. I think it lit a fire under the rest of the band as well, to kind of prove themselves. And I think it resulted in one of my favorite albums of all time, just from any band.
And credit to Bob Rock on the production.
Yeah.
Definitely, I think his best production.
Well, he did that and the Black Album. I mean, that's pretty incredible right there just for those two. But he did a lot of other good stuff too. Of course, he did Saint Anger, but yeah.
Can't all be winners.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, everybody slips at something. Now, what's your take on the album?
So yeah, man, I remember when it first came out. I remember seeing the Hooligans Holiday video on MTV, and MTV was still playing them before that fateful interview. When it stopped playing
Then
them.
it stopped immediately.
But I remember seeing Hooligans Holiday, and I'm like, whoa, dude, like, what the fuck's going on here? And I immediately really liked Corabi's voice, man. He had that rasp to him, and kind of, this kind of rawness to like his voice. It was way different than Vince Neil, dude. And I'm like, and I went to the mall. I remember going to the mall and I bought the CD. And at the time, I had a Cavalier sports car, and it had an Alpine. It had a real nice stereo system in there. I had an Alpine system with like 2 12-inch subwoofers in my trunk and all that stuff. And I remember I put the CD in, man. Fucking Power of the Music comes on, and when those drums kick in, it was just fucking pure thunder. Like I was like the production. I nearly was because I had my bass kind of turned up a little bit on the subs, and I had to turn it down because I thought I was gonna blow my subwoofers, man. That's how much great bottom end this album had. And then Uncle Jack, man, one of my favorite songs on there. Just such an incredible song. I mean, lyric wise, Corabi brought out this. I know Nikki Sixx is the lyric writer in Motley, but he collaborated with John on this, and it really brought out a maturity and more topical things that were going on in the world. I mean, you put this album on now, man, it just still sounds fresh, and it really there's some days where it's my favorite Motley Crue album. I mean, like Joseph said, it's either between this and Shout, or the two, and there's some days, man, where I'm like, fucking the Corabi album, dude, that's the top Motley album, man. Smoke the Sky, Dropping Like Flies. I mean, just like Chris said, man, there's not a dud on this album. And I remember, when I got the CD, you open the CD up, there was a little thing in there where you could mail out for the Quaternary, it was an EP. And
even more great songs. Yeah.
Yeah, and I immediately filled it out, and I sent away for it. And I remember getting in the mail. I still have it. Still have the original Quaternary CD, and each member of the band got to do a solo song, and then it was a band song on there, which I think was Baby Kills or something like that.
Yep.
And and they were all pretty cool songs. I mean, Tommy was doing his kind of
Wow.
drum loop, hip hop kind of thing, but it was kind of cool. It was kind of showed the influence of like each member of the band, And Mick did like a kind of a
Bittersweet.
bluesy instrumental kind of thing, and it was cool, man. So and Karabi was like a very Beatlesque piano song. And I remember reading the liner notes. He's saying he never even played piano. Like he just went to the piano and he just kind of tinkled on it and came up with this melody and wrote this song. And I was like, damn, this guy's like, this guy's talented. You know what I mean? So, I mean, I love it. And props to Chris and Aaron for that. I think that album's Unleashed was the first thing I ever heard from you guys, actually.
Oh wow.
And it kind of brought me into your podcast. And, I was like, damn, these guys, are doing a cool thing. I never really knew of the world of podcasting until I started listening to you guys and shit. So,
Thanks,
your year in reviews are awesome too. I always loved the.
Yeah, we're overdue for another one of those.
Yeah. The Karabi album, Motley, that's my number one. I go back to that. If I go to a Motley album, that's like usually the first one I pull out. That's the one I revisit the most. So.
And if anyone hasn't heard, Karabi put out a really, really good live album a couple of years ago where he and his band played the entire album front to back. And he still sounds amazing, and the band was killer. And it's just it's a really great it's a way to experience if you know the album and you're really like familiar with the album, it's a really good way to experience it from fresh ears.
Yeah, it's kind of like a what if they would have done it live.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I remember the tour. They actually came to New Jersey on that tour, and oddly enough, it was King's X and Typo Negative that were playing with them. They were playing an amphitheater here in New Jersey, but for some reason, the time they played that, I was away on vacation, so I missed it. And I really wish I would have seen that lineup live. I would have loved it, man. But
I wanted to go. They played here in Nashville. I didn't get to go because I had to work that night, and it was one of those like if I skipped work, I would have lost my job.
Yeah.
And but I did go to Camelot, or it might have been Turtles Music, and I went to the in store they did and got some stuff signed. Yeah, so I got to meet them. I got to meet them that day, but I missed the concert.
Oh, okay. Cool. Andy.
Three of y'all picked that one. I picked an album from a band that they came out in the 70s and found very good success in the 70s, late 70s, early 80s. Late 80s for me, they kind of drifted out, but man, when they came out with this album in 1990, it was an instant classic. I went with Judas Priest's Painkiller.
It's a great record.
Beginning to end, dude. This is just like their thrash album from beginning to end. Halford sounds unbelievable again. It's like this guy, he can't be real. This can't be real, but it is. That's so fantastic. So my number one is Judas Priest, Painkiller. Just, man, from beginning to end, it doesn't end. It does not load up at all.
The anti-turbo.
Yeah.
You see, after even Defenders of the Faith was okay, but Turbo, I hated Turbo, and that late 80s, it was just
Ram it down.
So when they came
there was a couple of good songs on Ram It Down on. You could tell they were headed into that Painkiller heavier direction.
It's just that damn drum machine ruined it.
Yeah, the drum machine ruined it. It's too mechanical.
And Johnny Be Good.
Oh,
we don't talk about that.
That could possibly be the worst cover in history, man. It possibly could.
It's up there.
They tried to
movie, wasn't it? Wasn't it for a movie originally?
It was for Johnny Be Good.
Johnny Be Good.
That's what it's called. Okay.
Yeah,
and the movie
Michael
did as well as the song did. Yeah.
Anthony Michael Hall.
Yeah.
But they got offered to do the song for Top Gun, and they turned
Reckless.
it down. Reckless, yeah, from Turbo. And they turned that movie down, and the movie was such a huge hit that they tried to overcorrect themselves and be like, so Johnny Be Good.
they took the first offer that they got.
Yeah.
very first offer.
Missed that train by a mile.
Yeah.
Top Gun and Johnny Be Good are in the same. No, never mind.
That movie was on Tubi not too long ago. It might still be on there.
Johnny B. Good was.
I'm surprised
Uh-huh.
it's even there.
I'll pass.
Yeah. But that concludes our top 10. But ladies and gentlemen, we do have our 5 honorable mentions. Jerry, did you make a list in between?
Well, I was managed to come up with 4 of them real quick. That's off memory,
Yeah.
real quick. I like "Time of the Oath" by Halloween, man. I think it was the album that their drummer died. One of the best names in music history, Ingo Schwichtenberg, I think his name is. Love saying that name, dude. Great band. We just did a review on them in the free forum. I guess I really can't talk about them. Mark hates when I talked about them early, but it was pretty cool to talk about. I Hear Black by Overkill. Great album.
Good one.
Fuck, I can't believe that band has 20 studio albums, dude, man.
Yeah.
Fuck.
They're
Just
busy.
amazing. Andy mentioned Get a Grip. I really like that album. All right, you guys probably laugh at me at this one for LA Guns, Hollywood Vampires. I really like that album.
I like that one too.
There's nothing wrong with that.
The-
That's all I,
album.
can think. I got my top 4. How about that? That's all I could think of.
Good ones. Chris, what do you have as your honorable mentions?
Okay, so for what I got, and I'll even do a countdown on these. For number 5, Metallica Garage Inc. I know it's a covers album, but it's a great album, so I had to put it in there. Ozzy Osbourne, I could have picked No More Tears, but it was massive, so I picked Osmosis, which has a few great riffs on it from Zach. Dio, Lock Up the Wolves. I just love Rowan Robertson's guitar playing on that one.
Great
I think it's great. Doc and Dysfunctional was my number 2 on the bonus ones. And then number 1 was Wasp, the Crimson Idol. That should have made my list. And then ones that didn't even make the bonus 5 was Great White Psycho City, except Predator and Winger's Pull.
Ringer's Pull on Al had that one earlier.
Yeah.
Joseph, what's your 5 honorable mentions?
So I had my 5, and then I completely forgot that I wanted to grab another one. That's why I got up a little to go to grab it. So I have 6. I'll go over a couple of them real quick of just ones that didn't make my criteria as of like when they came out. So Use Your Illusions. I definitely think I like it more than most people in the point where I think it would be more than one album of good songs.
Oh, wow.
But still definitely a fair amount of filler on there. One that I really wanted to mention that came out before my timeline would be Queen's Innuendo. I think this is a real return to form.
Great
for them.
record, dude.
Yeah,
Their
great
last record with Freddie Mercury's before he passed.
Mhm.
I think it's a really great record. Some really, really good songs on here. Some heavy stuff. The title track is one of my favorite Queen songs. Then one that's already been mentioned, Black Album. I still really, really enjoy this album. As much as I am burned out on a lot of it, I still really enjoy listening to this. And then when they put the box set out a couple of years ago, just rediscovering how amazing that era was, especially live. Just some really great stuff. One that Chris mentioned not picking, No More Tears. Not a perfect album by any means. There's a lot of questionable things on this album. But I think there's a lot of really good songs on here as well.
Yeah.
And so
I thought it was better than No Rest for the Wicked. So
I mean, the first 2 Ozzy albums are my favorite, and then after that, it's kind of hit or miss. So then my last 2 honorable mentions are for 2 different reasons. One, a band that was never popular enough to really make this list, but an album that I love from their later years. The last album of Chris Oliva's Time and Savatage, Edge of Thorns. Their first album with Zach Stevens on vocals. John Oliva still wrote all the songs and played the keyboards, but he was technically not credited as a member of the band at the time. But I think this is a really, really good album, and it was really, I think it's their last great album, and unfortunately it was the last before Chris Oliva passed away. I think that's a great album. And then another one of a band that was much more popular in the 70s than they were in the 80s. They had some hits in the 80s, but just a band, just an album that I think needs a lot more credit and deserves a lot more love than it gets, and that is Kansas, Freaks of Nature.
You just saw them.
Yeah, I just saw them live last week, week and a half ago. They sounded phenomenal. This is funny enough. There was only 3 out for their 50th anniversary tour. There was only 3 albums that they didn't play any songs off of, and this was one of them. And it was unfortunate because they've actually played a couple songs off this recently. But this is one of my favorite Kansas albums. It was their first since the early 80s to feature violin. This was their first album with David Ragsdale. It really was a return to form for them as far as their sound after the Steve Morse years, and before that, the John Elefante years. But I think this is a really, really, really good Kansas album. Steve Walsh's vocals are a little bit hit or miss on it, but otherwise, it's a really, really good album that people should check out if they love Kansas, or even if they just want to find an album that really deserves a lot more credit. Kansas Freaks of Nature.
That was a really cool because I saw your pictures on Facebook. That was a pretty interesting venue that they were playing in.
Yeah, they're playing all like opera houses and stuff like that. So it was a really cool venue. As far as the concert went, but it was an amazing show. I mean, they sound amazing, and their new violin player is absolutely amazing.
Yeah, and it looked like that kind of place that the acoustics would sound amazing.
Oh yeah. The venue sounded great.
Yeah, it was like an old time kind of opera house, is what it is, right?
Yeah. Yep.
The pictures were just beautiful of that place. Al, what are your 5 honorable mentions?
All right, well, on number 5, I'm going to go with Judas Priest, but Jugulator going on there. I know it gets a little shit on once in a while, but I love Tim Ripper Owens on there. I thought it was real heavy. It's kind of like the next logical step from Painkiller, even though some of the lyrics are kind of cheesy on here. It's worth it just for Cathedral Spires alone, in my opinion. I think that's an incredible track that I actually wish maybe Rob would tackle that maybe live. I think that would be kind of cool. Number 4, I'm going to go with Carnival of Souls by Kiss. Chris covered that one very well. It's one, I love that album, and I picked that way over their reunion album, Psycho Circus. So, in my opinion,
that album's terrible.
Yeah, so
I love it. Sue me.
Man, dude, different strokes for different folks.
Yeah.
Black Sabbath Dehumanizer. I love that album. I think it's a great heavy Sabbath album with Return with Dio. I think that kind of gets glossed over a little bit. I think now time is kind of caught up to it a little bit. Gets mentioned a lot more, but at that time, kind of got ignored, in a way. Number 2, obviously, Rush, the Rush Nut Counterparts. I love that album. And my number 1 actually is UFO, Walk on Water, when they reunited with Schenker. I think that's an incredible album. Came out in '95, and incredible album that nobody talks about in the UFO catalog. I think it stands right up with their '70s stuff. Like Schenker's back, and I kind of wish I went to go see him on that tour, but I missed it. But yeah, it's a great one, man. If you've never heard "Walk on Water" by UFO, man, check it out. It's a great album. So that's my 5 honorables.
Oh, cool. I'm going to end the show with my 5 honorable mentions. This band's been around since the 60s. They're in my top 10 band of all time. And this was really a return to form because I did not like their 80s output. But Deep Purple, The Battle Rages On. It's a really good album. It kicks ass. Also, Scorpions with Crazy World. I really liked their stuff on that album. Poison, Flesh and Blood. I really, they were kind of getting away from the previous Poison sound, but they still carried it with them, and they were going towards a different direction. It sounded pretty cool. Ozzy with No More Tears, obviously. Just like Joseph had said that there were some tracks there that were kind of bad, but the good songs were really, really good. Where we kind of forgive for those bad tracks, and also Iron Maiden, No Prayer for the Dying. I think the writing out there, it was kind of a concept album as well. No Prayer for the Dying.
Yeah, they went back to like hard Iron Maiden too.
Yeah, Tail Gunner was their heaviest song in years when that premiered.
Yeah, and that's what kicked off the album's Tail Gunner. So those are my honorable mentions. I think I have 4. I think it was 4. But well, once again, guys, thank you so much for being on the show. It takes time to put these lists together, so thank you so much for taking the time to do that. Thank you so much for being on here, Chris. I really do appreciate it. Hopefully, you'll join us again in the future. Joseph, thank you so much for working so hard as well, putting these lists. So thank you all so much. Jerry and Al, as always, thank you for being on, and I'm doing what y'all are doing for Black Spinner. I really do appreciate it.
Everyone say one thing
Thank
to
you for
Chris,
having me.
man. I just want to thank you for the great show you put on in Rockin' Pod, man. Thank you
Thanks,
again.
man.
I know you're kind of stepping down a little bit, but I still hope you're going to be
Yeah.
part of it, right?
Oh, I'm still a big part of it. I'm just
Okay,
I'm just
good.
my role's
No,
just changing a bit.
I will be there next year and the year after if you do it, man. So,
Awesome. Thanks, man.
great time.
I'm definitely going next year, man. I regret missing this one, but I was so busy with personal stuff that, with my mom having a stroke and helping her out and
That's
moving to
understandable.
Florida. I'm gonna be going back down to Florida on the 30th of this month. Another drive down to get the rest of our stuff down, and then my wife and daughter are actually staying down there, and I'm coming back up to still help my parents. I'll probably be back in New Jersey for the rest of the summer, but by the fall I should probably be moved permanently down to Florida. So next year, if there's a Rockin' Pod, I'm definitely going to it. I want to go, So
Awesome.
You
Yeah.
don't,
Well,
you don't
that-
have to go down. You don't have to go down 95, do you? To Florida?
yeah, I do.
Oh man, ain't that closed off in some area? They had some truck explosion, man, blow off an overpass. You didn't hear about that?
Yeah, that's out right near Philadelphia.
Oh, okay.
Nice.
Well, I'll have to see now what's going on
Just
with
wanted
that.
to warn you, just in case.
All
Yeah,
right.
well,
yesterday or the day before, gas tanker blew up underneath the overpass, burnt the whole overpass down.
And it collapsed or something, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
oh wow, I didn't
Yeah.
see that.
it melted the entire overpass.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't hear about that either.
Yeah.
Holy
But
cow.
yeah, man, hopefully next year Rockin' Pod, dude.
Yeah,
I'll
I'll
be
be.
there.
Well, yeah, we're doing it.
Yeah.
I haven't announced a date, but we have a date, so I'll let
That's
you
what I'm
know.
ready to
But,
say. You can't announce the day yet.
well, I'm not running it anymore, so I really can't leak it. So yeah. So
Well, one of these years I'm gonna make it. Just every year it's been something's come up with just it. It hasn't worked out yet, but one of these years I'm gonna make it.
I'll
Yeah, it was just
tell
so
everybody
cool
if
meeting
you.
all you guys after
Yeah.
talking online for years and meeting all you guys in person, dude. It was just freaking
Yeah, I was
awesome.
gonna say because I mean just
That very first night, in the meet and greet at that bowling alley, man. That place was pretty cool. Actually, I've never been there before.
Yeah, that's a cool venue. Yeah.
It's just great meeting everybody for the first time in person, man. Just a great night, man. Great memories. Thanks
Well,
again.
Is there going to be another Keel Fest? Anyway.
No problem with the Kiel team, but no, I mean nothing against them. We change it up every year and stuff like
know.
that. Yeah.
I'm selling an autographed signed heel album if anybody's interested.
are you still trying to get rid of that, Jerry? haven't found a buyer yet.
I might
I
buy
probably
it
haven't
from
put
you.
it up yet. I'm gonna keep it. I love old Keel, man. So
Dude, Keel was good, dude.
Yeah,
I got some of their old shit, man. It's pretty good, dude.
I view it as
I-
kind
I've
of
got- I've
like
got-
our Sammy thing on my show. It's
I
a
got
little,
that.
it's a
I
little
got-
tongue in cheek.
The only bad
Yeah.
thing about the Rocket Pod was I got COVID, so that night was kind of. I'm amazed I didn't get everybody sick. I really am. I didn't know I had it actually. I knew I
You
was
ain't the
feeling
only.
like shit.
You're not the only person who got it, but that's
Well,
just the time. That's just the times we're living in.
That was
Yeah.
that was my
And it
experience
was
a couple
cold
of
as
years
fuck.
ago.
It was cold as hell. It was just like,
Well, I can't
Couple of
control
bad-
that, Jerry.
no, I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't fucking change it for a minute for anything, dude.
That was what happened to me a couple of years ago. The Kix was playing this little like fire hall about half an hour away from my house, and they sold the place. It was right after everything opened back up again, and they played this little rinky-dinky fire hall, and they sold the place out. There was like 500, 600 people there, and the week after, pretty much everyone there got COVID. The entire band got COVID. My dad's best friend, who we went to the show with, got COVID, and it was bad.
It's still everywhere. Don't fool yourself.
Oh, yeah.
I wore
Yeah.
that COVID as a badge, dude. I had a great time there, so I've got no complaints.
All right, guys. Well, thank y'all so much for the time that y'all put in. This was a very fun show.
Well,
Thank
thanks for
y'all.
hosting.
Everything. And next week on the Black Spinner Circle, we are going to be having William Toth on here. We're going to be ranking the Neil Young albums of the 2000s on that date. So look forward to that. We are almost through with doing all of Neil Young's. We're going by decade once a month. So we are doing that next week. And then the week after that, I was talking to Travis, and the week after that, we are going to be covering Mach 1 of Deep Purple. Just the first. I think they made three albums.
Three albums.
Some
Yeah.
circle. So we're going to have to figure out exactly what we're going to put into that show. So we're looking forward to that. Doing Mach 1 by Deep Purple. Anyone else want to plug what's going on, Jared?
Like I said, Mark's on vacation, so we're not gonna have another show until we're actually gonna do our next BS on Wednesday. We usually do it on Thursday. We're doing it on Wednesday. Top albums of '88. If anybody's interested, let us know.
My list is all ready for that.
Yeah, my next week's actually my cover band week. I'm actually gonna see Brit Floyd, an awesome Pink Floyd cover band in Knoxville on Tuesday.
Yeah.
Then I'm gonna see a Journey cover band, Resurrection, like a week after that. And then a Fleetwood Mac cover band. I forget their name. They play at Third and Lindsley a lot. I can't remember their name. Shit. But they're a really good cover band of Fleetwood Mac. Like I said, that's all we get in Cookville is cover bands. So I go see. But I highly recommend Brit Floyd, dude. If you want to, you're not going to see Pink Floyd anymore, but they give it to you as close as possible, man. They really do.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
Chris, what's going on Friday on Decibel Geek?
I don't think we're going to have a live stream this week because of my wife's coming back into town from being out of town. And anyway, but yeah, that's kind of sporadic, although we are looking to do Friday Night Live more often. And with having actual guests rotating out. So I'll probably be bending the ear of all of you to come on at some point or another to do that. And then
Fantastic.
GeekWire coming back next week. We've got news stories to cover. I just saw a news item about Rockstar's last meals, which seemed morbid enough for our show. So we'll be doing that as one of the stories, and then we'll find out what Sammy Hagar suggests. But yeah, I mean that, and then looks like if we get 2 more 5-star Apple reviews or iTunes reviews, we will do Kissmas in July, starting in July. So a whole month of Kiss Talk. God help me.
Boy, I'm sure you haven't covered every topic yet, have you?
Well, it's like, what the hell do we talk about? I mean, I have to find another roadie or somebody to talk
Yeah.
to.
And what hasn't been discussed about Kiss? It's like anything new?
Not much. It's all been pretty much covered, but people ask us to do it every year, so we're looking into ideas for that.
It's one of my favorite bands. I'll listen to it. If you can tell what the heck. So,
They're not my favorite band anymore, but they're still my favorite band to talk about and poke fun of.
And Joseph, what do you have coming through the pipeline? Where are you going to be at?
So next week I will be on the BS sessions with Jerry and Mark and Charles, talking about the top 11 albums of 1988. So that'll be a fun time. I'm looking forward to that. And then just from then on, just continuing to keep my eyes and ears open. And I love talking about music. So
That's good to know.
Cool.
Very good to know. Al, do you got any shows coming up?
Nah, man, I'm just a lazy bum doing nothing. No, actually, we got my wife and I are gonna go see The Cure at Madison Square Garden. Let's see who else. Let's see. I got my book right here. Hold on a second. Hold on.
Also,
I got
my
my daughter tickets to see The Cure.
I got my
with
date.
her husband.
I got my date book right here.
Also, Al, before you go, tell us a little thing about that breakfast with the Beatles you went to on Sunday.
Oh, that was really cool. So, there's a classic rock radio station here that does breakfast with the Beatles every Sunday morning, and once or twice a year they actually do a live show from a venue in New York called the Cutting Room. Nice intimate venue, probably holds about, I don't know, maybe 150, 200 people. It's just like it's a place where just has a small stage, and they do comedy shows there, some local bands and stuff, and but it's a really intimate venue, and so they had a live broadcast in there. So I had entered on the radio station on email, and they emailed me Friday like, hey, you and plus one are on the guest list. You can go. You got to be there like early in the morning. It's like the broadcast starts at 8, but it's suggested that you get there because it's kind of they overbook it. So they suggest that you get there early because they want to fill the venue. So my buddy and I, we got there probably like 6:30 in the morning. You know, he came and picked me up at like 5:30 in the morning at my house, and we trekked into New York City. But it was fine because there was no traffic going into New York City or anything at that hour. So we got there fairly quick, and it was the Mark Rivera who plays sax for Billy Joel's band, and one of the guys that plays in Southside Johnny's band, and the Fab Four, the drummer. You know, so it was like a mix of like guys that they get every year. Then they were celebrating Paul McCartney's birthday, which is upcoming, and so it was great, man. I mean, and it got broadcast over radio. I don't know if you caught some of it, Andy, or not, but yeah. So and it was cool after the radio broadcast. The band still actually played for probably another extra half hour. So I caught that on video. So you'll see that on my YouTube channel, and so it was great, man. If you're a Beatles fan. And you know, and I love the Beatles, so it was a treat for me. And then that night, so that morning I saw the Beatles, and then that night I went to go see Christopher Cross and Justin Hayward from the Moody Blues.
Really nice.
So, I mean, the king of yacht rock, man. You know,
Christopher Cross rules, man. I love
dude, he's awesome.
Chris Cross will make you jump.
Imagine we covered that. That'd be great, man. That'd be pretty funny.
You should do a cover of it. That would be fun.
Yeah.
The ultimate meta cover.
Here's a quick bit of not to take the show too long, but Christopher Cross actually filled in for Richie Blackmore in the 70s for Deep Purple for one gig.
I saw that story.
I don't know if you ever heard that.
I never heard that before.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, apparently he's a real badass guitarist.
He is a killer guitar player, and he was ripping it up, man, like live. So
That's killer.
I know, like, you know, everybody knows Sailing and all that stuff, but if you ever get a chance, man, to see him live, check him out, man, 'cause he's really good, dude.
I'd like to.
And Justin
great song,
Hayward,
man. Think of Laura, the Arthur's theme song, man. That's a cool tune.
Yeah.
I'd
and
like
Justin Hayward from the Moody Blues was great too. So it was a great double bill. You know, if you like Moody Blues and stuff.
Right.
So that was my Sunday. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no! I was just gonna say those are some pretty good artists. And,
Yeah, it's cool.
And Christopher Cross is from San Antonio, Texas. So if you ought to know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, that was my weekend.
Oh,
So
yeah.
thank you for having me on, Andy.
Of course.
You know,
always.
Jerry, Chris, nice seeing you guys. You
Yeah,
know,
this was
Joseph.
fun.
You know, so
Yeah.
hopefully, Chris, man, you'll invite me on your show. Maybe we can do a Beat the Geek one day again.
I'm up for a rematch. I'm on
Yeah,
a
dude.
terrible losing streak, so yeah.
I did tie you that one time.
Yeah,
So
you probably beat me now. I'm starting to think I'm going senile or something.
So, all right, cool.
All right. Well, thanks a lot, guys. I really do appreciate it. This was a great show, and I thank you all.
Hey, thoughts and prayers to Metal Mike Tyler's brother, man.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes, absolutely.
I forgot
Absolutely.
how to start the show off that way.
He's been up and down the last couple of days.
You know,
Yeah.
let's say, everybody out there that's going to be watching this, say a prayer for the Tyler family. They're very important to all of us in the Facebook rock community and podcasting. They're always there with a helping hand and with their input, and they're wonderful people. So please keep them in your prayers. But the last post by Mike seems that Mark is taking a turn for the better. So
Good.
let's hope that keeps improving for the family.
Yeah, I know.
Wow.
As of this morning, I saw he said he had a pretty good night last night. That he was doing better.
Cool.
So thanks a lot for bringing that up. I completely forgot. So thank you so much. All right, guys.
right.
Good night, and I will see y'all out there.
All right,
Have a great
thanks.
night, everybody.
Take care,
Bye-bye.
man.
Peace out, man.